Hey, friends. What you're about to hear is a conversation with Carto, a senior systems and level designer with over a decade of experience creating games like Defiance and H1Z1. In 2018, he took on the role of lead designer for a small team charged with the creation of a battle royale set in the Planetside universe. The game that came to be known as Planetside Arena released, died, and shut down, all within a few months in 2019. In this conversation, I talked to Carto about how Planetside Arena came to be, what went wrong, and what he learned along the way. In doing so, I learned about how he abandoned a stable career to restart life as a game developer, about how he began streaming to reach out to the communities he cared about, and about what it takes to be a human being in a games industry that often deals losing hands to the passionate people who make all of it possible. This is the Deeg podcast. To support it, please check out my Patreon in the description. And now, my friends, here's Carto. So first off, thank you for taking time to sit down with me, Carto. I've been wanting to talk to you for ages. Um,
Like a year.
yeah, I've talked to so many other people in the Planetside scene. I've talked to Wrel a couple of times, which are Planetside 2 streamers and creators and stuff like that. And one of the things that that always comes up from time to time is Planetside Arena. Planetside Arena, like, wow, remember Planetside Arena? Like, what happened there, man? And
Yeah.
you were the face of Planetside Arena. So I
Yeah.
wanted to talk to you about that, but I also know there's a long story of your life and your career as a game dev before we ever even
Oh
got
yeah.
there. So if you're cool with it, I'd love to just back it
Yeah.
up and start with like how you came into being a game developer in the first place.
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, we can. I'll keep it high level, or else it'll turn into a 3 hour conversation on
Oh
its own.
no.
But yeah. Long story short was got out of high school and went to college and dropped out because it just was not up my alley. Like my
Mm,
grades were terrible. I didn't have interest in anything. It was not good. Went and did a bunch of odd jobs. So went and worked in retail, worked at car dealerships detailing cars, put in car stereos, and I got into construction, started doing HVAC and doors and windows and you name it. Like I did it, didn't matter. And then my dad, he's like, "Hey, I want to start a window company, and I want you to go into business with me." And I was like, "Okay." So we started a window company. I know it's really random, right? But
okay.
sliding glass doors and windows and mirrors and
Yeah.
stuff. And life was good. I was making good money.
Mm,
Was on a business with my dad, doing our thing. Still wasn't happy. Just was not
mm,
happy waking up every day. And what do you call it? Then just one of those things like play video games. Somebody
mm.
makes video games. What do I got to do to make video games? And then
Yeah.
that's when I went to college, and so got
So you
enrolled.
went back to college.
Went back to college. Went back to
Wow.
college. This was
How many
actually the
years
third
later was
time.
this?
Oh man, a lot. So I went to college the first time when I was 18, 19, right out of high school.
Yeah.
Went for a year, dropped out. And then in between all those small jobs, like I think I was like 22, 23, I went back to college again. I
Mm-hmm.
dropped out for a second time. That's when I
Mm,
realized that like traditional education wasn't for me.
mm.
And then so this was the third time. And so let's see. I got in the industry when I was 29. So therefore I went back when I was 27.
Okay.
And then yeah, so I went back third time at 27, and then I did a 4 year degree in 2.5 years,
Damn.
and just aced everything. And I was
You just ate
like,
it up.
just
What
I could not get enough. Could not get
so
enough.
what changed from 18 to 28 or whatever it was that went from college dropout to college ace? Like what's the difference?
I figured out what I wanted to do,
Hey man.
and it was all about subject matter, right? And so it was everything was about game design or game development or game art. I'm a terrible artist, by the way. That's why I'm a designer. But um, I learned that one real quick, and
Good to know your strengths.
and exactly. And it was just one of those like, well, this is how I will hopefully get to where I want to be, and so that changed everything. And so it was like I can do this, I can do whatever I need to, and I went from a C, maybe like a D plus student to straight A's, and it was just
Mm.
like, and that's when I realized I was like, man, all these years I thought I was really dumb, but I wasn't. I just wasn't applying myself because I didn't care.
Yeah.
And it's crazy because how little we focus on education about finding something that you care about And we just, well, it's all about intelligence and smarts. And it's like, no, it's about how much you apply yourself. And if you don't care about it, you're so much less likely to apply yourself. So
Right.
anyway, so I go back to school at
I relate to
27.
that. Also a college dropout, by the way.
Hey,
So
let's go.
feel you. Yep.
I feel like people like say that sometimes, and like some people have shame in it, and it's like, hell no. Like you realize that wasn't your gig, so good
Mhm.
for you for not just like. Anyway,
I learned a lot
um,
since then, as I'm sure you have.
yeah, it's crazy. If I would have known back then,
Yeah.
but so went to school, two and
Mhm.
a half years, cranked
So
out the
studying
4-year degree.
game design, is that right?
Yeah. So it was game design.
What is it like to study game design at university?
It was interesting. A lot of the general ed courses that you would expect, whether it's math and history
Yeah.
and literature and all that kind of fun stuff that I don't like. But I like math. I like math and science. I'm a math and science guy. But
Word.
um, when it came to the game design stuff, it was things like whether it be color theory or introduction to different modeling programs, introduction to game engines, high level designs. Now I think it's a little bit more focused on technical aspects of like understanding like scripting languages and things like that.
Mhm. Mhm.
But back then, a lot of it for me, I had to focus on level design, and so it was all level, a lot of geometry, working in editors, whether you're doing it with static meshes or BSPs, because that's what was big back then.
Yeah.
And just how to get things up and running, spawners, waypoints, all that kind of stuff. And so, at the end of it, I was able to essentially build multiplayer levels in Unreal, and
Uh-huh.
that was what my reel was whole made out of. It was just a whole bunch of multiplayer levels.
Seems like a good skill to have.
Um, yeah, and it was so much fun, and I ate it up. I just couldn't get enough of it. Right,
What
like
is it
it'd
about
be one of
level
those.
design that works for you? Like what motivates you?
I don't. I blame it on Legos. When I was a kid, I would like sit there and just build Legos for hours and hours and hours.
Uh-huh.
And level design is digital Legos.
Yeah, man.
It's just me playing with just digital blocks, and like I just eat it up, and I miss it because I'm in system design now, and I love system design, but
Uh-huh.
I miss my level design. But it would be when I was in school, it was nothing for me to start a project on, a Friday evening after work, work all night Friday, work all day Saturday, work all night Saturday night, work all day Sunday, and then crash out and then go to work on Monday. And like when I was able to do that over and over and over and over, I was like, I'm on to something. Like this is because it's passion, right? It's
Yeah.
it's it's the passion that pulls you through because like anything normal, like you would just crash out. And so um
Yeah.
I was just
What
excited. I'm
Once you
getting excited
unlock
talking about it.
that thing that activates you, that you know is like, "This
Yeah.
is what I'm supposed to be doing," then
Yeah.
it's like,
Yeah.
"Get me back to it." Everything else feels like a
Yep.
distraction.
Yeah. 100%. And it's crazy because like it's weird because you're like, I found my purpose. And someone's like making video and like I know it sounds crazy, but yeah, this
Right?
is why I'm here. Like and I know this is what I'm supposed to be doing because I love it and I care about it. That's a lot of fun. So but yeah, so then I got out of school. And I was hit with the hard reality that like no one wanted to hire anybody straight out of college. I
Mm.
couldn't find a gig, right? And so every place I was looking, it was like, junior designer, 2 years experience, and a ship title. And I'm like, that's not junior. That's someone who shipped games. Like, guys, what are you
That's
doing?
mid-level. Come on, man.
And so, yeah. And so, I found a program called ID Tech. ID Tech, they do summer camps for kids, and they teach robotics, they teach coding, they teach level design. So I got
Oh,
lucky
that's
there.
cool.
And a bunch of I always called it nerd camp. It was
Hmm.
exactly what it was. It was straight nerd camp, and it was
Yeah.
great. And so I did that for a summer, and I did it at University of Miami, and I did it at Harvard. Had a lot of fun. I think it was still, even with all the game jobs, one of the most rewarding jobs I've ever had because it was
Huh.
like we would start a week and there would be like a bunch of like super socially awkward kids that who thought that no one else was like them, and then they'd like interact with each other a little bit, and they'd realize that like, wait, I'm not the only one, and then like
Ah,
they'd light up, and you're like,
that's
yeah,
amazing.
that's right. We're all complete nerds. Embrace it. But
That's amazing.
um,
You see the thing in
it's
them that you figured out for yourself, and you can
yeah,
share. You
yep,
can give them the gift of, kind of validating that and showing them,
yeah.
"Here's what the path can look like." Ah, that's so cool. I love that.
It was so good. It was so good because you would see the moment like on their faces when they realized that like they weren't some like super nerdy like no one else is like them or
Yeah.
whatever, and
There was
and
nothing
it's like they
wrong with
had
them. There was something right
yeah,
with them.
exactly. exactly.
Yeah.
So super rewarding. But
Cool.
so I did that. I did that for the summer, and in the meantime, doing that, a good friend of mine, his brother's best friend, is a concept artist. His name's Billy, and he knew one of the recruiters at a studio here in San Diego called Triumph. And so I sent my portfolio to Billy, and Billy took a look at it, and he's like, "Dude, for someone who's never made a game, this isn't half bad." And I was like,
Mm.
"I'll take it."
Yeah.
So he's like, "Let me send this to my friend. She's at Tryon, and we'll have her send it to the guys." And I was like, "All right, cool, thank you." So this was like my first end. At the same time, I had gotten a interview for at the time ZeniMax Online. They were working on Elder Scrolls Online before anybody knew what it was. This was 11 years ago now, I guess, 12 years ago.
Yeah.
And so that was my first interview, which was, oh man, I bombed that one so hard. It was so bad.
Ooh.
But it was like, it was the first interview ever, right? And I'm just like, "I'm sorry. I know what I'm doing. Trust me."
What was so bad about it?
Well, so they have being the first interview I'd ever done in the field, and I get flown up there. I get picked up by, a driver in, a stretch town car. And I'm like, I don't know if they know who
Were you
they
looking for someone else?
dinged, but like, I've never even done this before, but yo, let's go. And
Yeah.
so then, I get to the hotel and stuff, and the studio is right next to it. And so I go into the studio, and I sit down in the room. Everybody's super nice. They were super nice.
Mm.
And I sit down in the room, and keyboard and mouse is there, and I'm talking. I forget their names, of course, by now, but a couple of people from design, and they're like, "All right, well, hang out, be right back." And they come back with like 25 people, and it was people from design and people from art, and they're like, "Go ahead and walk us through your portfolio." And I damn near died.
My
I'm just
God.
like, I've never seen a game dev in my life, and now there's like a room full of them just
Public
like
speaking.
beaming at me, right? And I'm like, oh god. And so I got through it, but like, welcome to the industry. And
Ooh.
yeah, that was a tough one. But and,
Okay.
I had lunch and stuff, and the day went okay. But like, there was just no way with my nerves and everything else, and like just sweat pouring down my face that
Hard
anything
to
was
make
ever gonna happen from that.
hard to show what you're really about in a situation where
Yeah,
it's so
yeah,
much new, so much pressure. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. And so bomb that one.
Mm.
Uh, while I was in the hotel for that one, I was actually finishing up the design test for Tryon because they had reached out and we went back and forth. And actually, let me jump back a little bit. So,
Mm.
my buddy sends stuff to Tryon. One of their designers, Greg, and I owe Greg, the beginning of my career because without him, I never would have got a job, 100%.
Mm.
So he sends me an email and he's like, "Hey, dude, I think your portfolio is dope. Here's some feedback I have on your portfolio." Now, as somebody who's been trying to get someone's attention, an industry's attention, I like just lost my mind. I was like, "This is the best thing ever." So he sends me his email. I think he was on the way home. It was at the end of the day.
Mhm.
So I was on the East Coast. So it was, it was late, 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock at night.
Sure.
And I was like, it's go time. So I didn't sleep and I worked all night and implemented all of his feedback, tore apart my website, rebuilt everything back up, changed my levels, re export everything, got it all done, and made sure it was waiting for him at 9 a.m. in the morning when he got to
Oh.
work.
Ooh.
So it's there, it's done, all his feedback is
Stepping
there.
up.
And next day, he sends me another email. He's like, "Wow, that's really impressive, dude. Like, you did all this stuff. This is all great. This is that." You know, I would, still work on this, and this. And I was like, "Let's do it again." And so I just kept on trucking. And so, he sent me the email and I didn't sleep and redid it again, tore stuff down, this and that. So I sent it off. And apparently, like, those 3 days of me just rapid firing all of his feedback was enough for him to go to his manager, who's Craig. Great guy. Love Craig to death. And be like, we should talk to this dude because like this is an insane amount of work in very little time and he won't stop. And Craig goes, "Stop emailing this guy. You're going to kill him. Like he's not sleeping. Like please stop. Just like give him a couple days and then email him back." So long story short, they sent me a design test. I was finishing the design test at the hotel while I was interviewing for ZeniMax. I got a lot of stuff going on, and they take my design test and they like it. And so they're like, "We're gonna fly you out, and we want you to talk to the team." And I was like, "Sweet, we got another one. Can't go any worse than the first one.
Round 2.
We got this. Round two." And it was much more expected, like, one or two people at a time that you're talking to. And so I was like, this is a cakewalk at this point. Like, no problem. We can
Yeah,
do this, right? And
you've been in the
so,
fire, man. This was nothing.
oh man, after that first, so I'm thankful, very thankful for ZeniMax because they
Uh,
set me up to do well the next time because it was very vigorous. So, um, so sit down, have all the conversations with them. One of their senior level designers, Josh, he hits me up. He's like, "You want to ride back to your hotel?" I was like, "Dude, I appreciate it. Sounds good." And he's like, "Hey, I don't want to, you know, count chickens before they hatch. Everybody liked you. You want to go out and have dinner with us tonight and stuff?" And I was like, "We're in, boys. We made it. We figured it out. This is how it goes." And long story short, that was it. And so I got my first offer letter and then left Florida, picked up everything, and came out to California to make video games. And 12 years later, still doing it. 11 years later, however many years, how many years? 11 years later, still cranking
wow.
away. So
Opportunity plus hustle.
yeah, it just it was, man. Like you had to go, and I'm so thankful. I still see Greg. Um, I'll be working at the same company. I guess I haven't said anything on social yet, but by the time this goes live, everybody else will know. So I just took a job at Amazon. So I'm
Mm.
heading over to Amazon.
Word.
Greg's at Amazon. And so like working with him again. Billy's at Amazon. So I get to work with him again. And so it's just like, oh man, I can't wait. So I start Monday. Today's Friday.
Wow, that's
The third.
exciting, man.
Yeah, I'm so stoked. I'm so excited. So excited. So yeah. But
I would love to ask you what you're
small.
working on, but I'm sure you wouldn't be able to tell me.
Oh no, I can. It's so um I super long time fan of crafting and gathering and economy. And so I've got like 15,000 hours in WoW, 10,000 hours in Final Fantasy 14. The majority of those hours have spent crafting, gathering, and playing the market.
Word.
I've always loved it. Getting a gig on a system like that is next to impossible because there's like 4 MMOs in existence. You know what I mean? I mean, there's a lot.
Right.
But so I'm
No,
actually joining the New World team
oh, let's
to
go.
yeah, I'm so excited.
That
I'm
is
so
so
excited.
that is so cool.
Yeah, I'm super super stoked. So yeah, so I'll be joining there as one of their senior designers, and we'll be taking point on crafting and gathering and economy. Well, not economy, crafting and gathering. And I'm sure I'll be working on economy here or there or whatever. But crafting gathering is like it's a bucket
That
list
is the
item. Like
heart of New World, man.
oh
I
dude,
played it a bunch last year. What a
yeah,
cool game. So many cool ideas. Like you talk about combat, talk
yeah,
about the world, talk about like the
yeah,
PvP and the war system, but like the
yep.
crafting, man. The crafting.
It's I don't know who set it up originally, but I want to shake their hand because like there's something so special about it. So to have the opportunity to go in and work on it, like I'm gonna cry a tear of happiness. I can't wait. So Monday is gonna be a really good day.
Oh, that's exciting, man. I'm pumped for
Yeah.
you. I'm pumped for you. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, well let's rewind back
Yeah.
to nailing the interview at Tryon. You're gonna go there to work on did you know at the time you were gonna be working on Defiance?
Yeah. So it was Defiance, and it was
And for those
Defiance
who
was
don't know, what is Defiance?
yeah, it's well, I guess it was. No, I guess it's still live. But anyway, it was man, third person shooter MMO RPG with a television show. And it was this crazy thing where, it is basically over the shoulder combat in a huge quote unquote serverless world. Everybody would just log into the game and it had tech to just kind of put everybody together and it just, go pew pew and level up and get stuff and
All
whatnot.
the
But
good stuff. Yeah.
yeah, the interesting thing behind Defiance was like it was in development for about 5 years, and I feel like 18 months until ship, we kind of threw a lot of stuff out and just started over, and then
Ooh.
built the game in 18 months and then sent it. And I don't know, it did okay. A lot of stuff I'm very proud of with it. I got to do a lot of level design on it, and so it was I think one of the highlights of my career was I went into work for almost 9 months and just would log into work every day and just build levels, go home, go back to
Yeah.
work, build levels, go home, and I was like, this is the dream. Like I'm just
Yeah.
sitting here pushing blocks and building stuff. Oh, it was so great.
Playing with
So
Legos. How long
playing with
before the
Legos.
launch did you join that team?
I was there for 2.5 to 3 years, I think.
Okay, so
So about half of its cycle.
you saw a lot of the iteration right up until
Oh
the
yeah.
okay, here's what we're doing. Ready, set, let's go.
Yep. Yep. And then it was just let's go, right? And the team pulled it together and came together and we worked a lot. but cranked it out and got it out the door, and it was good. It was good. I was also at the end of that was the tough part because I was the my first layoff, and
Oh,
that was when I was like, oh God, what am I doing? This is, oh no.
were you a survivor or a victim?
Nah, I was in the first round, and I was panicking because I had only been there for at the time, like I said, 2.5. I think it was 2.5 years. And I was like, man, I'm still like really really new. Am I going to be able to land another job?
Mhm.
And so I went back on my instincts, and so it was a really weird layoff, right? Because they did what's called a Warrant Act, because they were laying off so many people in California. When a company's going to do that, you have to let people know, and I think you have to give them 90 days, 60 days.
Hmm.
I can't remember. It's either 60 days or 90 days. Be like, hey, in 2 months or 3 months, we're going to end your employment. Typically, what companies will do is be like, you don't have to come to work anymore. We're going to pay you for the next 3 months. Let us know if you need any help with, job placement, whatever.
Go
And you
California.
guys can go. Yeah, right. And so it's like, it was a really cool program. They don't
Mhm.
have to do that. And Tryon was trying to ship something. So they're like, y'all are gone in 3 months. We need you here on Monday. And
It's time
that
to
was,
crunch.
it was so like you had so many people that like just came in and just, screwed around or whatever. And
Of
I don't blame
course.
them because they were done. I'm panicking. And so I'm like, well, what do I do? And so I went back to what I know, and I was like, I'm just going to keep crunching and work a bunch of overtime, and maybe I can maybe I can save my job. There's no saving my job. Maybe I can save my job.
Mm.
But I got lucky because the one of the senior director, Eric, he came from PlayStation, and so he saw me like continually crunching, working a ton, this and that, and so he was like, when I went to apply PlayStation, he put his word behind it, and then I was able to kind of get in and this and that. And it was like, hey, this guy, you know, will grind to the bone, and he's a really good employee. And so it was like, once again, just the hustle, it paid off, and so,
Yeah.
and that's how I made the jump from Tryon then to PlayStation for the first
Yeah.
first round.
Someone who does good work and works hard isn't easily forgotten. Right.
Yeah, and I just wanted to do right because like even though we were leaving, anything that we left like in the wind, any of my coworkers that were still staying behind, they were going to have to like deal with it. And so I didn't want to like leave a mess or anything like that. And so I was like, because like I've always said, it's a huge industry. It's a very
Mm.
small family, and everybody knows everybody, right? And you just like take care of each other. We're basically all we've got, and
Yeah.
got to stick together, And a lot of cool people in the industry. It's been great.
Cool. Cool, man.
Yeah,
So, um, to Sony after Tryon.
yeah, yeah. So left Tryon, went to Sony. That was when I actually made the jump away from level design.
Mhm.
um, joined Sony as a general game designer because
Okay.
it was a small team, very small team. I think there was like I went from Tryon where I want to say we had like 20 or 30 designers. It was a lot of designers
Mhm.
to Sony where we had 3, and that was it. Maybe
Okay.
4, 5. Anyway, it was tiny, but it was across multiple projects. We were a small little team that was messing with free to play for Sony, and this was back in
Interesting.
2014, I think.
Okay.
So before free to play was like the big thing, right? And
Yeah.
so a few different projects going on, a lot of stuff I can't talk about, but we
Mhm.
were, we were doing our thing, and it was a lot different. And I realized that at that time, because I was trying to get a level design gig and I couldn't find one anywhere,
Hmm.
that systems design actually had a pretty good demand, and there
Hmm.
weren't a lot of people that were, what do you call it, experienced in it. And so I went for it. And so when I was at Sony the first time, I focused on things like character design, character balance, ability design, economy. That's when I first like got into economy. Started looking at like Tableau to figure out analytics and understand all that kind of fun data points and whatnot. And so that's when I really started to kind of dive into systems design. I was there for 3 years, I think it was,
Mhm.
and then I was hit by another round of layoffs when Sony was like, "We're going to stick with big box AAA titles." So, that's that. And I was like, okay.
All
And they
right.
were really, really, really good about it. I love my time at Sony. And from the point of the layoff forward, I was like, I got to figure out how to get back in here because the place is amazing. And so
Cool.
they were super good and they took care of everybody regardless. And, it was good.
It's
So,
kind of a nature of the
um,
industry thing. Like people get ideas, they put a bunch of money behind it, and then years later, a decision is made, and then you got to
that was it.
realign, and then
Mm-hmm.
people got to go.
Yep,
It's kind of
exactly. And
brutal.
so, It
Kind of
is.
brutal.
It is. It is because it gets expensive. Game development's super expensive.
Yeah,
Um, and and then Sony did what they had to do. And I don't blame them.
sure.
But yeah, and like I said, they were super good, and so that's why
Yeah.
foreshadowing. I ended up back there again a few years down the road because I
Right,
was trying.
right, right. Could you explain to me what system design is?
Yeah, yeah, no, totally. I usually discuss system design as everything the player interacts with that they don't realize they're interacting with. So whether it's itemization or it's progression, right? So if you're working on, you're playing a game that has a battle pass, and
Mhm.
the battle pass has progression, right? And
Uh-huh.
there's all the whether it's dailies or weeklies or missions or whatever structure is tied to getting rewards to progress your battle pass. Systems designer probably touched that. If you're looking at something like a battle royale, say for example, and there's a scoring system, the systems designer is probably the one that set all that up. If you're looking at a MMO and there's an economy and how much money you're quest giving and
Right.
what is the systems designers touches all that. So there are all these things where it's not like I played a level. That's the level that the level designer made. Like you can't like see it, but when you
Yeah.
play a game, you're like feels really good. I would kind of want to keep playing it.
And
It's you know kind of that
yeah.
background. Yeah. So
And
it's
as a guy like you who spent 25,000 hours playing MMOs, plus, I
yeah
mean, that's just WoW and
yeah
Final Fantasy. Like, I
yeah.
watch, I'm sort of lightly connected with the modern WoW retail scene. I took like a
Hmm.
decade off from WoW, came back in Shadowlands to try it out, see what was going on. It's
Yeah
interesting to watch the community commentary there, where people don't. I mean, they're not usually talking about the levels. They're not talking about the kind of experiences. What they're always talking about are the systems.
yeah
Like to a certain point, to a certain very dedicated gamer, the systems do become quite
yeah
visible and uh, I've always had this kind of intuition, and I wonder if you could correct it or verify it, that
yeah
like a system that's doing its job well is harder to see than a
yeah.
system that is not.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So like you'll see it, and we see it, from different games and whatnot. But people were like, "Dude, why do I have to do this? I don't want to do this every day."
Yeah.
And like that is there's a there's a balance, right? There's a certain point of friction that you need there to make it so it becomes rewarding when you get to the other side.
Yeah.
Too much friction and you turn people off. Too little friction, there's no sense of reward and they bounce. And
Mhm.
so it's really, really difficult to kind of balance that. Now the other side of it is a system that works really well for someone who's super casual, maybe either not rewarding enough or too grindy for someone who's just trying to freaking sit down for 20 hours a day and just fly through. Like, why can't I get through this? Because you're not
Mhm.
supposed to. Why are you time gating me? Because if someone doesn't, then in 2 weeks you're gonna be like, there's no content in this game because you played it for 20 hours a day.
Mhm.
Um, and so it's really difficult. But you're right. Like when a system is working really well, you don't really seem to notice it. You just engage with it. You feel good about it. It can go either way. Again, too much friction, too little friction. It's really hard to kind of nail it right in the middle.
How
It's
do you
like
tune
UI.
that?
Yeah, it's man. There's feedback, obviously. User testing can usually be like an early on indicator. And then the other side of it is if there's alphas and betas. Your alphas and
Where
betas are golden because like that's the first time you're gonna get raw. People coming in, it's still a little difficult because when someone's in like an alpha, like a friends and family alpha, they're just happy to be there because they're in a friends and family alpha. So like,
right, they're kind of
oh, this game's
vibing.
great. All these
They
things
already
are like,
like
oh
you.
man, this is awesome.
There's an
And you're
incentive for
like,
them to give positive feedback.
exactly. And so it's
Yeah.
tough, right? And then so like once the game is out and it's live, if the mark has been missed big time, I don't want to say it's too late because I'm a firm believer it's never too late, right?
Mhm.
Like look at No Man's Sky. No Man's Sky is a
Right.
poster child of how you can like turn that ship around and go the other way and then go way faster than you ever thought you could. But like it's really difficult because by the time that you get that feedback, either people have already quit or the people that are there are just like super upset now. And so
Mhm.
it gets dicey. But
Mhm.
alpha beta usually gets some. A lot of it comes back from data points and like very analytical, like how what's our average session length, how far are people going, what's retention looking like. what's the engagement on like a specific system or whatever, and you can kind
Yeah.
of get something. And you got to be careful with that because if you go too far, then the game feels like it was built by a machine and not by a human being.
Right.
But they're all pieces to the puzzle.
Yeah. Yeah, I've always been fascinated to understand, and I know this is like anything you could respond to this with would be a enormous generalization, but I'm always fascinated about like when decisions are made, especially things that seem to be binaries of maybe we should do this or we could do that.
Mhm.
How much of it is analytics? How much of it is listening to various parts of the community's alphas, betas, or how much of it is
Mhm.
just I mean, the vision of the people making it. Um,
Yeah.
that is of all the things in the mix, right? Analytics,
Yeah.
feedback, whatever. It feels like that first thing, that one thing, the vision is the one thing that's kind of unreplaceable in terms of
Yeah.
being needed to do anything good.
Yeah. No, the vision is it's the hardest part, in my opinion, because you have to find somebody who can hold that entire vision, drive it, and then convince everybody else to stick with it, even
Yeah.
when it's like, we shouldn't stick with this right now. They're like, trust me, just stick with it, right? And so, like, I think a really good example of this is Yoshi P and Final Fantasy 14,
Okay.
and just where that's kind of been over the years and where that thing is going, just in the general holistical look of it. Especially with how Final Fantasy 14 originally launched and then was
Hmm.
shut down and then came back, and ever since, and there's just like you can
It did all
tell.
kinds of things that like have never worked before. Like who
Yeah,
else has hit a
and
reset button like that? And
I don't even
and
know.
the arc of that game over the last few years has been incredible to watch.
Yeah, and it's driven, one, by a team that really cares, but two, the individual at the helm has one hell of a vision and can stick with it, and has a team who believes in the vision and can get behind it and build some stuff. And that usually comes from a blend of, you know, letting the team explore and have fun and do things that they want to do and then understand and then like figure out how to mold that and go forward. And the other part of it is like, homie just knows what Final Fantasy 14 is supposed to be
Yeah.
and he's going with it. And at this point, like, please keep going. Like
More of that,
the
please.
game is amazing. So just you do you, and I'll just keep consuming it. So whatever you got.
Right.
Um, and it's tough because like there is a level of analytics, right? There is a level and sometimes you got to walk things back.
Mhm.
Final Fantasy's doing, I think their next patch, they're walking back some PvP changes because they didn't go right, or um, they went too far in something, which is totally fine. And I think that stuff is important as long as you communicate it. You can do
Mhm.
almost anything as long as you communicate with the community. If
Mhm.
you don't communicate, then they're like, why are you doing it? Or why are you saying anything? What's going on?
You think we didn't notice?
Yeah, exactly. Are you trying to pull a fast one? Like, no, no.
Mhm.
People are data mining stuff. There's no pulling fast ones anymore. Like we can't do that anymore.
Yeah.
Everybody knows everything.
Yeah, it's a long way from, like, going to magazines or news
Oh
websites
yeah.
for screenshots, right?
Yeah, no kidding.
Man, man. Okay.
Yeah. Social
So
media
it's
has
really
changed
important to
all of that.
have a key vision. Um,
Yeah.
I think and this is maybe dithering a little more. So if this doesn't interest
No,
you, please
no,
tell
no, you're
me.
fine.
But I think I've read somewhere. I wish I could put a name or a face to it, but something about there being some video games that are made in that way, like the
Mhm.
revitalization of Final Fantasy with Yoshi P with a strong vision holder, and some games
Mhm.
that are kind of made in a different way. Oh, I remember who it was. I was talking to Alan Lapidus
Hey, I
at
love
Daybreak.
Alan.
Right, right.
Yes,
He
he's the
does.
best.
Yeah, he's a cool
He's
dude.
Yeah, he's super talented.
And he was talking about, and I think it was because of his experience working on the EverQuest IP. I think maybe where some of this
Mm,
came from. Where some games
gotcha.
are made in a different kind of way, where there's not like one big vision guy. It's kind of like more of a
Mhm.
collaboration, more of like a
Yeah.
let's come together. Has that been your experience too? Like what? How do
Mm,
you think that? What do you think
yeah.
about that?
Um.
Maybe it's too vague of a question.
No, 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 no. I think the most of the projects I've worked on have had somebody at the helm, so to speak.
Hmm.
Um. I think my first go around at PlayStation, it was definitely more of a collaborative effort. Everybody on the team kind of had input. Everybody was like going back and forth a bit. there was still somebody, you know, a design manager, a design lead that was there. But you know, that was a little bit more. Uh, yeah, PSA was a bit more team wide as well, honestly. Um, because like, well, I had an idea, and we'll get into this eventually. But I had an
Yeah.
idea of like what I wanted the game to feel, or how I wanted it to look, in a way, what vibe I wanted it to have.
Mm.
I had to lean into the guys that were there,
Yeah.
you know,
What they
whether
were
it was
excited to do.
yeah, Burness and Kevmo and you know, the
Word.
guys on the who knew Planetside because they had been there forever working on Planet.
Yeah.
Like, who was I to tell them how Planetside should work?
Yeah.
Nobody. Like, I may be able to tell the vibe of it, or like how I may want it to look, or you know, if I'm working with the composer, like what do I want the audio track to sound like, or
Mhm.
how do I want, you know, sound effects in the game, or whatever it may be. But when it came down to like to the moment to moment, it was like, y'all got to help me out because if I'm just going on my own, we're 100% getting Halo. I guarantee it, and I'm guaranteed people are going to be very irritated if this
People are
is
gonna
just
like,
Halo.
wait a sec. Did you think we weren't gonna notice?
Exactly. And so, you know, and we had a lot of really good conversations back and forth where I want to do something, and you know, they're just like, can we figure out the spirit of it? And I feel like we did a lot, but like that was, I think,
Interesting.
an example of like where it's a blend of this is what I really want to do, or this is what I think we should accomplish, versus like, can we or should we, or how do
Mhm.
we do it? And then
Mhm.
it goes beyond that, but we'll get into PSA deep dive in a minute. So, but a lot of the other projects I've worked on, there's always been somebody at the helm, kind of steering the ship, and whether you know people on the team will
Yeah.
give feedback or insight or whatever. It hasn't been so much. It wasn't like what EQ sounded. I was never on EQ, but where it was like everybody in a room, like, hey, what should we do next? It wasn't. Didn't really have that kind of a vibe.
Okay.
The projects that
Okay.
I've worked on anyway.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, yeah, I appreciate the insight. This is all fascinating stuff. I'm really going to
Mm-hmm.
get to PSA, I think, before too long, but we have, I think, some very interesting stuff to tuck into first. So,
Cool.
after PlayStation, after you were laid off from PlayStation, layoff number
Yeah.
two,
Yeah.
what happened next?
So big industry, tiny family.
Uh,
So when Tryon started the first time, it was basically SOE 2.0 because a bunch of people from SOE left. They wanted to do something new and different, so they
mhm,
went and they started Tryon.
mm,
When Tryon folded, a lot of them went back to SOE. I went to PlayStation. PlayStation folds. Who do I know? Whole bunch of people at SOE,
yep.
or what is now Daybreak. And so I had a good engineer friend of mine. We'll just call him Drew. He gave my resume to the one and only Andy Seitz. And Andy dug the resume and was like, hey, talk to Drew. I'd like to talk to you. Let me know if you have some time. And I was like, I got nothing but time. So let's have a chat. And so, and that was kind of the start of those conversations. And then, I don't know, it was very quick. Before I knew it, I was working at Daybreak with Andy and the guys on, at the time, was an unannounced Planetside game
Mhm,
way back then.
mhm.
And
Am
that
I
was, yeah.
am I misremembering to think that you worked on H1Z1 for a little while
Oh,
first?
no, no, not at all. You are correct. So
How does that fit
the,
in?
so this is, I've talked about this, I think, super lightly, but when I was hired at Daybreak the first time, this was 2016, 2017,
Okay.
one of those years, H1Z1 hadn't taken off yet. And so I was actually hired for a Planetside game. It was dubbed Planetside
Oh,
Mercenaries.
okay.
And Planetside Mercenaries was Planetside Battle Royale. Now, this was Planetside Battle Royale before H1Z1 had ever taken off. And so the studio was already working on another BR game before they realized they were going to have success with the first BR game.
Huh.
And so we were working on a whole bunch of different stuff, some pretty cool things. Smaller team, and I think that's one of the things I want to speak to real quick. I know everybody wants Planetside 3, like 100%. We'll get into that later. Who wouldn't want Planetside 3? Planetside 3, if it's anything like Planetside 2 was, it's one hell of an investment because it's a lot of people over a lot of years for a whole hell of a lot of money, right? And so Daybreak was very much, let's keep the teams tight. Let's keep the teams small. Let's see what we can do, under reasonable budgets, right? And we're not going to go throw 20, 30, 40 million dollars at something because that's a
Mhm.
ton of money.
Mhm.
So let's, we'll do something small. So we were working on what we called, Planetside Mercs, and it had a lot of cool stuff to it.
Okay.
H1Z1 started taking off. All those resources on H1Z1, we got success, and let's just dump everybody onto this thing. And so we, and
Gotta
it was
go
like,
with
all right,
hot
whatever.
with what's hot, I guess.
Yeah, I had been there for 3 months, 4 months,
Mhm.
and they needed help in the level design department, and I was like,
Let's
let's go,
go.
sign me up, let's build some levels. Little did I know it was actually moving couches and cleaning up trash to get performance up and make it so people could go through buildings easier. But I didn't care. I was still
Glorious.
having fun. Yeah, it was
Glorious.
fine. And so I did. I spent, I think, like 6 weeks, 8 weeks going through a bunch of POIs, cleaning them up so you could like navigate buildings better. And so we were doing that, and then they needed somebody to lead the systems side of H1. And then so I ended up taking that, and so I got lead systems designer and took over all the things in the background, gas mechanics, loot distribution,
Mhm.
how people spawn, things like that. And so I worked on that for a few years, and then came the super famous combat update.
Mm.
That thing went out. It's a 3-hour discussion on its own.
Can I ask you a
After
little bit
that,
about it? I'm
yeah, absolutely.
I'm curious about it. In part, I'll be honest, selfishly, because it has like
Yeah.
echoes of a similar thing that happened in Planetside 2, with
Mm,
the combined arms update. Um, it
okay.
seems like my understanding of that update was that there was an interest in refreshing the moment to moment combat experience, and
Yeah, it was accessible, making making it more accessible.
maybe where we can start this is I hear you being somewhat reluctant to jump into this. What is that feeling like?
It's because there's so much, man. There's, oh my goodness, there's so much crap there. So like the the con it's weird for me to say it. I feel like the combat update came from a good place,
Okay,
right? Management wanted to make the game playable by more people and have more people play the game. Right?
okay,
They wanted to expand the brand. They wanted to build it, right? Everybody's like, "Oh, why'd you do that? You guys just wanted to kill your game." It's like, no, that was never anybody's intention.
hmm
The issue was H1Z1 it had character. You shot an
yeah,
AR and it freaking went side to side. There was no vertical recoil. It was just pure horizontal, right? It was
mm,
awkward. It was different. It was a result of a bug. If I remember correctly, somebody thought that recoil was additive and it was multiplicative. And at some point there was a zero in there. And so it just zeroed it out. And so the thing just went left and right. I'm pretty 99% sure on that one. But people dug it. And so it stayed, right? And
yeah,
so it had
and it
all,
becomes part of the flavor. It goes into the walls of the
exactly.
place. You build around it.
Yep. Yeah, 100%, right? And so the game is out for a few years. People are used to it. You can't change that.
Mm,
But if you want to make it so someone, because like, PUBG started doing its thing, people would play PUBG, the guns felt normal, at least normal enough where like, click the mouse button, you're like, oh yeah, I understand this. And so there was a question of like, let's do this. And so that's kind of where the whole thing had started. And so it came from a place of wanting to grow the brand,
mhm,
wanting to get more people in the door. Unfortunately, you couldn't do it at that point. The game had been out for too long. At that point,
mhm,
and I've always said this: like once you ship a game, you have a handful of weeks where it's still your game. After that, it's no longer your game; it's the community's game
yeah,
because
interesting.
like it's theirs, right? They're getting used to it. They're memorizing how things work, this and that, and now you got to work with them with how you want to go forward. And there's an extent, right? Expansions and DLCs or whatever it may be, where you still have like a lot of creative
Yeah,
freedom.
yeah.
But for the moment to moment, like, could you
Mm,
imagine if like Destiny had an update tomorrow and you can only jump like 6 inches in the air?
mhm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or like their core combat changed. Like they didn't have any abilities anymore.
Alright, got rid of the
Oh my
power
goodness,
grind.
man. Torches and pitchforks, bro. Like it's coming out. Like you can't do that. You
You
can't
can't
change it like that
rewrite
anymore.
the agreement to that
No,
extent,
you go make a new game.
right? Although Destiny is an
So
interesting example of that because they are vaulting huge amounts of their content that players have paid for. They
Yeah,
sunset a whole bunch of gear that up till then was usable indefinitely. They
yeah,
made a line in the sand with their community that didn't make them very popular, but they're going
yeah.
on in any case.
There, yeah, and there. I mean, I'll always say, and I've got friends on the Destiny team, and I'll never understand it, but I don't know why we have a Destiny 2. I don't know why the hell it wasn't just Destiny 1 continued. I'm guessing, I think it was around the time of, I think it was around the time that Activision owned them. So if I had any guess, again, hey, y'all need to ship a new game. And so that's what happened. But
I'm grateful because I mean,
um,
and we got a PC release, and I'm a
it's
PC
true.
guy.
No, it's true. It's true. But I bounced so hard off Destiny 2 the first time. I was so mad. I was like, bro, I'm in the
Ooh,
tower. There's the vault. Just let me get my stuff. Like I just played this other game for like 600 hours. Like the vault, it's right that just
it's a little
what?
insulting, right?
Where's my? Can I have an emblem? An emblem? Something?
Yeah,
Anything?
yeah, and and
Just
and
it's this.
and then now years later, they've re-released so many of the old stuff from Destiny 1 and
Yeah.
Destiny 2, and
Yep.
for someone like
Yeah.
me who never
Exactly.
played Destiny 1, it's like, "Oh, this is cool, like,
Oh
let me
man,
watch a
we were.
video about Destiny 1 lore." It's a
Yeah,
it's
we
it's like
were.
a fun thing, but for someone who was there, it's like, "Come on,
Oh
dude.
man,
Are you
we
serious?"
were doing like day one races for raids in D1 and stuff. Like we were hardcore, like full sending. And so like when they just threw the baby out with the
Oh,
bathwater, we were all just like, put our all of our time,
yeah.
But it is what it is. I play Destiny 2. It's a great game. I love it. It's awesome.
Mhm.
They've done just a great deal with it,
It's really
and
impressive.
it is so. It's just so good. It feels good. It sounds good. It's an easy game to kind of just like jump into and just enjoy for a little bit. You don't have to like you can no life it, or you can be a super filthy casual, and either way you can enjoy it. And I think that is just
It's hard to do.
it's so difficult to pull off, and they do it so well. So,
Yeah.
but anyway, that's my Destiny rant.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I love it. I love it. I could
But
talk
yeah, so
more
the
about Destiny, but, let's get back
whatever.
to,
Yeah.
thing you don't wanna talk about, the combat update.
Mhm. Yeah,
So
and I mean, it's
go ahead.
yeah, no, go no, no, go ahead, go ahead, go ahead.
I was just gonna kind of try to frame my understanding of it so far.
Yeah.
Stiff competition coming into the Royale
Yep.
space. We didn't know
Yep.
H1Z1 Royale was gonna catch. No one knew that.
Nope.
We got something here. Okay, let's put some people on it. What can we do with these people? Oh, let's take it up a notch. Let's make this
Yep.
better. Um,
Yeah.
but maybe not understanding, and who did understand this back then? I don't know. 5 years ago, that
Yeah.
the point you so brilliantly put about once something is in the hands of the community, it becomes as much or more their game than the Vision guys' game, who's
Yeah.
making the game, who's building it with their own hands.
Yeah. Yeah. And at the time we had some direction or creative direction shifts and whatnot, and it's tough because someone comes in, they're given the keys, if you will, as a creative direction on something. They want to put their mark on it. They want to put their make it theirs, which is totally understandable, and that's hard for a live game
Yeah.
unless you're already a huge fan of the game or you play it a lot or whatever it may be, because you're going to want to do all this different stuff, and you can't, because at the time hundreds of thousands of people at a time are playing it, and they're doing
Mhm.
their thing and they're enjoying it, right? And so it's like it's a really really tough spot, I think, to put somebody in. um, and yeah, it was just kind of a bummer at the end of it. But
Yeah.
the team stuck it out, did the best work that we could do under the circumstances. Try to make something you were proud. I mean, on the systems update for their combat update, I think that's when we got out the new loot distribution, the improved gas mechanics, and there were a lot of wins in there, right? The
Mhm.
combat itself was something that people really honed in on, combat and movement.
Mhm.
There was one of the big things, like with H1, was like it was crouch spammy, right? You just spam C and you go
Yeah.
crazy. And there was a desire to smooth out the combat so people weren't just doing that, right?
Mm.
And so it went through a whole bunch of iterations, whether it was like a fatigue system and there's a
Sure.
bunch of stuff. We'll just leave it
Yeah.
there.
Okay.
And that's where like a lot of the negativity, like people couldn't move the same way that they used to. They weren't shooting the same way that they were used to.
Mm.
The bullet mechanics themselves, right? I mean, it went from damn near an airsoft gun to something that was modeled after, actual ballistics, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so,
Feeling
if
of
you've ever
weight,
played, yeah,
consequence,
if
less
you ever played
arcadey.
old,
Sorry, go ahead.
yeah, 100, no, 100, exactly. Arcade is perfect. You ever played old H1? You shoot somebody across the room and you're aiming over their head because there's so much bullet drop, like it just like falls out of the gun. And then with the combat update, it was like there's someone clear across the map and you're like 1 pixel over their head and you're getting them. And people are
Mm-hmm.
like, dude, what? Like, where's the skill gap? And you get a whole skill gap conversation about skill floor, skill ceiling. Anyway, um,
Friction.
but it was made a lot easier. But then Bloom was added, right? And that was a huge thing for Cone of Fire and Bloom. They're like, there's a guy across the street. I have a pistol. I can't hit him because my bullets are going everywhere. Now the game is based on RNG. Like it is just an absolute cascade of all these things. And man, it was a nightmare.
At the end of the day, people just didn't want new Coke. They wanted old Coke.
Yeah, they just wanted old Coke, dude. And they just wanted to play their game and click heads. Well, I guess click 3 feet over a head to drop the bullet into the head, but you know what I mean.
Yeah. The beautiful mechanics of clicking heads.
Yeah,
Amen to that. So
that's it.
speaking of clicking heads,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, were you about to say something?
No. Go for it.
Okay. So how did work kick back up again on the Planetside project?
Yeah, so H1 was doing its thing, not doing its thing, however you want to look at it.
Yeah, okay.
And Andy had started this little like rogue team, if you will, to work on mercenaries again. Like, hey, like let's get this going.
I
Let's get
like
this
that.
back up again.
Okay.
And I was still on H1Z1.
Uh-huh.
Uh, I was not doing well. My health was terrible.
Huh.
The stress, just the constant, like it was bad.
It wasn't
I
good
got to
for
a
you
point.
to be in that spot.
No, it was very unhealthy. I got to a point where I went to the doc, and he's you're having stress related heart palpitations. You need to take time off work, or you're gonna end up in the hospital. Because I cared, like I just wanted to make it right. I just wanted to do right by whatever, and it was just a mess. And so finally, the thing was after that deal, Andy had been like, come over, and so I was like, let's go. And so dipped on H1, went over, and started as lead designer on PS. What do we call it at that point? PSBR. I think it was PBR. Yeah,
PBR.
Pass Blue Ribbon.
There it is.
Um, and so yeah, so we were working on what was Mercenaries, and it was
Uh-huh.
our spin on quote unquote battle royale, and it was great. And I think to this point, that was the best time in my career
Okay.
because there were I think 8 of us,
Yeah.
and since H1Z1 still had activity, the company was still hyper focused on H1Z1,
Mhm.
and so the 8 of us would come into work, do our thing. Nobody would bother us.
Mhm.
Um, it's actually one of I always had a lot of respect for Andy, but because he's an executive producer.
Okay.
They're always in office. They're always in offices. They have their
Uh-huh.
own thing.
Uh-huh.
That man sat in the pit with everybody else. Didn't care. Had no office. He just he'd be sitting right there, right? And so it was cool because like
Just
all
throwing
of
in.
us were in like all of us were just in this big cube making this game together, right?
Uh-huh.
And it was super collaborative and we want to make something dope. We want to make something different.
That sounds really fun.
Um, and it was so good.
That's
It
the
was so
dream.
so good.
Be there at the very
It
start
really
to be
was.
part of the vision.
Yep. And it was great. And so we started doing design documents and figuring out what we wanted to do. And the big thing for me was like we have 8 of us.
Mhm.
Let's not reinvent the wheel where we don't need to reinvent the wheel.
Sure. Sure.
And we were working in Forgelight still because obviously Planetside and all that.
Yep.
I would build prototypes using I don't know if I can say that. Can I say that? I don't know if I can say that. We'll just say different engines because it was quicker and easier for me to work in,
Yeah. Yeah.
and just to show people like this is what what we want to do, and then
Mhm.
we'd go build it in Forgelight or whatever, right? But just take examples from other games, right? Like if you took there were a lot of learnings that we made from H1 that I wanted to do, and I knew we couldn't do there because you can't change that game.
Like what?
So, for example, if you took a look back then at Fortnite, because Fortnite at that time had been out and kicking,
Yep.
and you just look at their loot,
Mm.
and you've got this super holographic, green or purple or orange, and like There's a purple. I want to
Pow,
go get
pow.
it.
Yeah.
Exactly. And so I couldn't do that in H1.
Yeah.
Can't make like, an AK or an AR like purple. Like, oh my god, I could only imagine what would have been said. But we could do that here. We had the freedom, right? It's sci-fi. It's something new.
Mm-hmm.
It was like if it was like a huge breath of fresh air to do whatever the hell you want
Mm-hmm.
to an extent. And so, things like loot and this and that. And so we wanted to do that. The other thing that we realized with H1 and some of the things that we saw, people were like, man, I just want to drop with, my stuff or have what I have. And that's when we got rid of no loot. And we started giving people loadouts. And so you just pick the guns that you wanted to and you upgrade them through the match, right? And so there were a lot of these kind of decisions that would like come to, fruition and polish. And so we were
And
working on this thing
and
for
how much of
yeah,
that? How much of that? I mean, you were saying earlier about like the way games
yeah.
are made being more
Hmm.
kind of vision defined or more collaboration defined.
Hmm.
That you learned a lot from the Planetside old heads in the room.
Yeah.
I'm guessing that
Yeah.
process is one of the main things that's happening here is you're like, well, I want this, and they're like, well, this is what Planetside is.
Yeah, and it's like so a lot of their stuff would come down to the moment to moment. Like what are the things that make Planetside great?
Yeah.
What are the elements of combat that we can't touch or that we don't want to mess with or like that we want to keep familiar, and so I was like, a kid in a candy store over here with like what do
Uh
we do
huh.
with loot or how are we going to set up, the mode structure and all these other things and this and that when it came down to, setting up specific weapons or grenades or whatever it may be.
Hmm.
Like, hey, what are we doing here so we don't completely screw this up? All right, it still needs to feel like Planetside,
Can you shout
but
out any specific examples? I'm so curious.
uh, so one of the biggest ones was actually the orbital strike grenade that we had
Uh huh.
in PSA, and I remember, God bless him, I remember when we went off about this first time. Burness he was like, what are you guys doing? Like, you can't put an OS on a grenade. Like, he was just not having any of it, right? And Andy and I are like, explosions, bigger explosions, this is gonna be
Yeah,
great.
man.
And so we went back and forth, and we ended
God
up.
bless Burness.
I love him. I love him to death. He has so much knowledge. Like, it is ridiculous the amount of stuff that guy knows. But anyway,
Huh.
and so the we ended up with a grenade that was much smaller than what we originally asked for, but still felt planet side enough to pull off and have in the matches that we wanted, right? And if it wasn't for him, would have probably shipped something super broken and just ridiculous
Mm.
because it would
Hmm.
have been the original like bigger explosions, like speed and damage. So, the OS grenade is one of those
So
ones that I
grounding,
really
grounding the
just yeah,
idea into the IP.
exactly.
Okay.
Because it wasn't just the planet side stuff
Hmm.
like Bernass or Kevmo or I mean Andy, even to an extent, they understood what it meant when you had 1,000 people in a place.
Yeah.
You can't get that experience anywhere. Like that's not. I worked on Defiance. I think some of our biggest things had 200 people maybe.
Hmm.
But you get the battles in Planetside. Like oh my! Like I saw a clip this morning. And
Hmm.
it's just freaking. You got a Bastion. You got freaking mosquitoes everywhere. People on
I
guns.
saw that one.
Dude, it's just
This
like
guy's like
oh
come back for the first time after years, and he got
yeah.
into a turret and
It
watched a
just
bastion battle, which those are so fun to watch.
dude, it's great, right? It's Hollywood. It is just Hollywood happening in front of you, and like
It's
nothing else does it. It's
it feels like
Planetside.
being in Star Wars, like being in a Star Wars
Yeah.
battle. That's what it looks like.
Yep.
Yeah.
100%. And it was all those elements that I had no ground to argue. I had no ground to be like, no, this is how we should do it. So when those guys said something, better listen
Yeah.
because I don't know what the hell
Yeah.
I'm doing when it comes to that.
And
Like let's
you
do this thing.
and you are the kind of
And
person, based on your earlier anecdotes when you were interviewing, where you're thirsty for feedback.
yeah, like I wanted to make sure we did it right and make sure that we weren't doing anything. You're never going to get it all right. But when it comes down to the moment to moment, or it comes down to get it right where you can.
Hmm.
And when you get it wrong, it won't feel as bad.
Makes sense.
And, ultimately, and we'll get to the why, the big problem with PSA was the game mode.
Mm.
Nobody wanted Battle Royale. But when we were making PSA, and I guess we're about at that point in the timeline. So we're making PSA and making Battle Royale. We're all feeling fine about it. There's a little bit of us that's like, BR game, I guess. Whatever. Fortnite's out,
Mm.
PUBG's out, H1 is still doing his thing, but I guess another BR, it's fine. Call of Duty came out with what was their first one? Was it Black Ops 4 that had the BR? Their first BR?
Sounds right.
I think so. Which blew everybody's mind because like
Yeah.
you guys make maps with like 6 people on it, and that's all you
Yeah.
could ever do. And how the hell do you have a
How
BR
do you
now?
do
But they
this?
did.
Yeah, and it
Yeah,
worked.
and so they pulled it out. Like, yeah, whatever. We're still sci-fi. We're the only one with 3-man squads.
Mm-hmm. Mm.
We've got a lot. We've got a lot going for us, right? And then, damn man, went into work Monday morning. Turn on the computer, boot up Twitter. What's up, Apex Legends? And I went, you've got to be kidding me. And here comes this game. No one had any idea it was in development.
Out of
No one
nowhere.
had just no, like, and I remember the whole team is just sitting there, like, watching Twitch, just like, we're so screwed. Like, we can't compete with this. Like, there's just no way. Like, I think at this point, 12 of us who've
Yeah.
been working on this game for like a year, maybe a little bit more.
Yeah.
And then there's Apex that has this like massive launch, huge streamer playing it, and they've been involved in development for the past 4 or 5 years or whatever.
Yeah.
And we're just like,
Huge
we're
long
dead in the
development
water.
cycle, probably 10, 20 times the number of people working on it.
Like, I don't know how many people are on the Apex team when it launched, but if I looked at it and I had a guess, I'd say 100 to 150.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it was a incredible. It is, but like when it launched, it was an incredible game.
Mm-hmm.
Like, no hiccup at launch. No one was getting locked out of it. Like, it just worked.
Mm-hmm.
And we're just like, how the hell are we supposed to do anything? Like, we can't, because we were supposed to. I think we were getting ready to announce. I think we were getting ready to announce like 2 weeks later about a 3-person battle royale, and then here's Apex, and we're like, well, huh,
Yeah.
this sucks.
Yeah.
Now what the hell are we gonna do?
And they've taken the idea of classes and turned them into characters, into
Yep,
heroes.
yep. The colorful loot,
A lot of the same
like
ideas. Yeah.
it's just all the same stuff, right? We had no clue,
Sci-fi.
and it was just like mo- it was like my desk is falling apart. That's how depressing the story is. But like the
So
but
what do you then do? What are your conversations like at the office? It sounds like you're just processing as a team. Like
oh yeah, you're
you're
sitting there, you're like,
on Sunday, you're making a cool project with a modest team that
yeah,
should have a niche that will be workable. It's a
yeah,
fun, creative process. You think there's going to be some appetite for it, and that knowledge is based on an understanding of here's what's been made. Here's what gamers can play now. Here's what our competition looks like, and then on Monday,
yep,
that completely changes.
yeah, yeah. We sat there just in, like I said, in awe. It was like all the things that made us unique and different were no longer unique and different, and now all we had was we no longer had a Planetside battle royale game. We had a Planetside sized Apex Legends without the engine, without the polish, without 150 or whatever people behind it.
Hmm.
12 months in, and it was just like, what the hell are we gonna do now? Because like you can't compete with that
Yeah,
with such a tiny little team, and you know what I mean. It was just like there was the sometimes you can that game, and to their credit, that game was just so good, and the launch went so well,
yeah.
and it was well designed. It ran great. Had it went wicked viral. I remember we were sitting there just looking at the Twitch numbers, and that thing just like rocketed straight to the top. And it was just like, well, what do you guys want to do now? And those were the conversations that started, and then some really good conversations happened, uh,
Okay.
because that was when we, and this came from a lot of the hardcore Planetside guys on the team, but
Hmm.
what to do, this and that. And that's when we started to shift away from Planetside BR, PBR, PSBR, whatever you want to
Hmm.
call it,
Hmm.
and into Arena. and it was well, why don't we just do multiple game modes?
Hmm.
And well, I don't think we even had the name yet. But I said, let's make Halo on a massive scale, and we can do because like Halo hadn't come out with anything on PC.
Right.
It was just chilling on Xbox.
Yep.
Um, I can't remember the last time I played a good, capture the flag game on
Right.
PC or territory control or oddball or any of that. And so like we had this huge library of ideas that we could like pull from or be inspired from and
Out
things
of
that we could
shooter
build
lore, modernized
just
them.
out of shooter like exactly,
Yeah.
right? And so like we had all this stuff to work on. And then, we started kind of talking back and forth and it was like, well, what else did we really, really like? And we all loved Battlefield 2142. And
Okay.
we all loved Titan mode. And we're
Mm.
like, what if we just do Bastions instead of Titans? And like we had a massive 2142 as like the first kind of deal. And so that was what some of the things we started looking at and started doing design docs based around the stuff and started getting, the team was getting reignited. We were getting excited again because we do these things. And so then we had to have the questions with exec, like we need to pivot. We can't make a BR game. We can't, we
Yeah.
can't compete with these guys or anything like that. And for, the executive team, that's scary because
Of
now you've
course.
got, a year and a half of development time sunk into this thing, and your team's like, we want to turn around and go a different direction and, whatever. And so it was a lot of conversations. And at some point, I can't remember exactly when, uh, it's all kind of fuzzy, but, we got the green light and we started building it. And so,
Okay.
the guys started kind of cranking away and we started doing our thing. And I, I still don't know what happened. Um, I don't know why it went back, but we went into work on one Monday and it was just one of those things like, y'all are making a battle royale. We're like, well, what about this other thing? I'm like, nope, make a battle royale. That's what we set out to do and it's what we're comfy with and that's what we're going to do. And I remember,
Just finish the
we
job.
broke yep, finish it. And so we wrote news to the team. Team wasn't happy. They were happy about this other thing. And it was a really, really rough time because now there was this rift, but like in, in game development, there, like I said earlier, right? It's super expensive. It's
Yeah.
so expensive. It's so much money. And so I try to like when you're growing up and you wanted to go to the arcade or whatever. For those of you who are old enough to remember those things, I probably just dated the crap out of myself. But you wanted to go out with friends or whatever it may be, and you would hit up mom and dad and you're like, hey, I want $10, I want $20. Let me borrow some money. But now you're saying, hey, mom or dad, can I borrow 10 million? Can I borrow 20 million? It's a way different conversation because that's
Hmm.
essentially what you're asking for. You're like, we have these ideas, but we need $10 million to make them come to fruition. Will you give me $10 million? No one in the right mind is going to give me $10 million. I mean, look at me, right? And again, colored lights everywhere, and like, not gonna
Oh,
happen. Anyway,
I kind of
but
like
like,
it.
and so like, those are the conversations that you have to have, and you have to like convince them to give you, 7 or 8 figures for all these people to work on this thing that you can't even guarantee is going to work or what's not going to work.
Yeah. It's a risk.
And
It's a
I don't,
gamble.
yeah, I think that people forget that, right? They're like, oh God, why would this game company do that? Because like, it's just, there's so
Yeah.
much money at stake. And I hate to make it like sound like it's all about money, but like for a non creative driven executive, it's a business. They're
Yeah.
here to make sure X people can remain employed. They can pay their paycheck. They
Hmm.
can feed their family. They can turn profits for shareholders or whatever it may, like it's a business, right? They're not there because they like, sci-fi
They're
rifles
not
and
Scrooge McDuck
explosions.
diving into their
Yeah.
money bins.
Yeah.
You got to be
Yeah.
able to pay people so that they can make a living to work on
Yep.
your stuff. And if you can't do that, then I mean
Yep.
that's a bare truth right there. And
Yep. And
it only feels like a business like when I think on the gamer side of it,
mhm.
the kind of business kind of like, well, maybe they're cutting corners, and maybe they're trying to
Mhm.
get by with a skeleton crew. Those kind of discussions happen when we see things that don't look right. It's like, oh,
Yeah.
what's kind of going on?
What's going on there?
But when it's
Yeah.
going right, though, no one talks about the money. No one
No one
talks
talks
about the
about it.
business when things are going
Yep.
right.
Yeah, because you don't care. You're playing your game and you're having fun. You
And
don't
things
care
are
what's going
and
on.
ostensibly the business is growing, it's succeeding,
Yep.
it's doing what it needs to do to stay in the
Yeah.
background like a good system.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Right. And so, the decision was made to go back to BR, and I'm guessing that H1 through its ascension and then descension placed some fear into taking risks or making changes. So it was like, let's not change all this and let's just kind of keep going the way that we're going to go.
Hmm.
Um, and so, then we went back to work and started working on, what would have been PSA with the idea that BR would be the first mode. And then we'd have
Okay.
these other modes that would go with it, right? Because like
Where did
I
that
was hell bent
idea
on,
come from of it being the first mode?
well, it had to be, right? Because they want us to make a BR game. But rather than just make a BR game, well, we'll have modes, right? Well, we
Yeah.
still do what we want to do. BR will just be one of the modes.
Yeah. Makes sense. I think the
Um,
question in my mind, and
yeah.
sorry if this is pressing too much, but
No, no, you're
is
fine.
along with that comes the assumption that there will be more than just BR happening here. And I
Yeah.
wonder, like, is that something that was commonly understood and agreed upon, or was it just sort of an expectation in the air? Like, where does that land?
Um, no, I feel like it was pretty agreed upon. We'll launch the BR. We'll work on other stuff as well.
Okay.
And then we'll get the BR out there, and then get the other things out there that we wanted to do. Maybe start a little bit smaller than the huge Titan mode or whatever. And then work up to it.
Right.
But the
Capture the
goal
flag, stuff like
from
that.
yeah, exactly, right.
Yeah.
And the goal from my side was to allot the runway to get to the point where we can make the thing that we wanted to make. And
Hmm.
so maybe we have to make BR for now, whatever. We can make a BR game, sure. As long as we can get ourselves enough room to then make some other stuff. And we the thing that we needed to do at that point was prove to the Planetside community that we weren't just making a BR game. Because if we only came out with just a BR game, it's DOA. Like it's not going to go anywhere. This isn't what they
Hmm.
want. Like there's just
Hmm.
absolutely no way this is going to fly. And look what happened, right? And so, and so we did. And so we took a look at the BR, and that came with a whole bunch of, I think, issues as well, because I was like, hey, we saw what happened to H1 as soon as population dropped. Lobbies took forever. Couldn't get into games. You get into a game that
Yeah.
was half empty.
People who
I was
love
like,
it can't love it anymore.
you can't love it anymore. And I was like, if we really want, and this is one of the things why I wanted to do, the other modes a bunch. If we really need to do this, this needs to be like a drop in, drop out battle royale almost. Because I
Mm.
can't sit there and wait for 1,000 people to freaking queue up for a mode. I'll have like 3 modes running. Like, because the thing
Yeah.
and I forget the math off the top of my head, but I want to say that you take your game mode and you take the number of players it requires, and then you multiply that by about 50. And that's how many people you need playing that game mode in order for a BR to kick off, right? So if you had a BR of 100 players,
Hmm.
and you wanted to make sure that those matches were firing off quickly,
Hmm.
you needed about 5,000 people playing that one mode on that one server, in that region at that time. And then you'd have quick matches that would kind of kick off, right? That was the
Hmm.
math that we ended up working out.
Makes sense.
This is Planet side. We don't do 100. We're looking at
Mm.
300 or 500, right? And so now I'm like, you guys want 15 or 20,000 people per region playing this mode? I don't know what you guys are on. PS2 doesn't have that many people playing it.
No, it
And
hadn't for
that's
a long
one
time
mode
either.
in one region.
Yeah.
Unless this goes viral, this shiznit is dead on arrival. Like this is not going to happen. You have to have drop in, drop out, because if it's only one and there's 1,000 people playing it, then you have 3 matches going and the game feels full.
Right.
There's nothing worse than playing a game and going in and having it feel dead.
Right.
At that point, it's just a self-fulfilling prophecy and it's over, right?
Yeah, if you think it's
Um,
dead, whether it is or not, by the way, if you think it's
yeah,
dead, for you it is.
then it is, right? And
Yeah.
so we could not bank on these huge modes that had to like queue people up and then send them in. Um, the
That's rough
problem
because
was
that is the trade of Planetside. That's what it's always made headlines for. Yes, a
drop
random
in,
ass
play,
like
drop out.
Battlefield guy.
Yep,
Have you heard of Planetside? What do you know it for? Oh, big battles, I guess.
big battles,
Yeah.
and like you load up Planetside, you pick a server, you go play somewhere, you drop in, and it's craziness because everybody's playing in the same damn spot.
Yeah.
If
Yeah.
if everybody was
It's
like in
one
their own little
server.
instance,
Yeah.
like it wouldn't work out, right? And so there were a lot of complications that came with trying to do a BR to this scale. Um, and that's why we really like those other modes
So
because they could
how
be
did you want to
drop and drop
sorry,
out.
I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, I was just saying so they could be drop in, drop out to make all that
How
way easier.
how would the drop in, drop out have worked?
So what we were thinking of at first was essentially like because we wanted PSA to be super accessible. That was the other thing too. Like with Apex, they like the whole revive system. There were so many things that were the same. I was like,
Uh-huh.
bro, do we have a mole? Like, is someone just like feeding it out? Like, this is crazy. And it came down to the fact that like-minded people have like-minded designs, but it was just we wanted people to stay in and alive in Planetside Battle Royale as long as possible
Okay.
because you need a lot of people to make it feel like Planetside. And if 3/4 of your lobby's dead in the first 5 minutes, that's not Planetside because there's like 10 people left. And so the idea was if people join in, then they can just like drop pod in mid match or whatever. Sure, they may not have the right gear or their gear's not upgraded, but they can come in the middle of a match, maybe
Yeah.
get some scraps and stuff
So
and
they have a
move on.
disadvantage because they're joining late and they don't have
Mm-hmm.
the accrual of gear and whatever, but they also have an
Yeah.
advantage because they didn't have to have all the gunfights to get there.
All the gunfights to get there. And so maybe they're picking up scraps or maybe they're doing whatever.
Yeah.
And then after a certain quote unquote wave, then that lobby would get locked out and no one else could join and it would come to a resolution and people would join the next lobby. And so it was like this battle royale where people could join into a certain point because and with the drop pods and stuff, like you could see when someone's coming in, there's a freaking drop pod screaming through the sky. Like there was no
Mhm.
missing it. It wasn't like, well, this guy parachuted behind me. I didn't see or hear him. Like a drop pod just came in, dude. Like it makes a ton of noise and damn near blows up on impact. Like you're not missing it.
Mhm.
Um, but and so that was one of the things that we were kind of looking at to make it more of a continual versus your standard battle royale. Queue up
Makes
a whole bunch of
sense.
people and then let them go. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. What else?
Um, but yeah, and so so we started looking at that, and then we started looking at a bunch of how does the gas work. That was another huge thing that was tough because we didn't
Gas?
want to do
Oh,
the
narrowing.
circle.
Yeah, okay. Go ahead.
Yeah, exactly. We tried trash compactors like squares, and we tried a whole bunch of different stuff.
Trash
'Cause-
compactors. It's Star
yeah,
Wars?
that's what we called it because it was like it would basically come in on the sides and then come in from the top, and then come in on the sides and come in from the top. Um, And oddly enough, believe it or not, it got really tricky because something would happen at the corners of the zone and it would
Uh-huh.
get super jacked and it would break. But
Mm,
who would have thought that a square is much more complicated than a circle?
that's funny.
But we were just trying a bunch of different things. And so ultimately, we had what was PSA. And by the time the community saw it, and by the time like we had pivoted and then pivoted again and then pivoted again. And at one point it was box price and then it was free to play
Right.
and then it was box price again and then it was free to play again. And like you can't design a game as a free to play game that then box and then free and then like it just kept swapping back and forth so much, right? Because they were
Mhm.
trying to, and again, to no fault, zero fault. I don't blame it. I don't blame it at all. How do we mitigate as much risk with this in terms of money
Mhm.
because we spent so much on it already? How do we recoup it? Should it be a box price or should it be free to play? And the argument was, well, box price is going to make it harder for people to cheat because if they get banned, they're going to have to buy another copy and it's way less likely to cheat if you got to pay for copies.
Mhm.
Two, retention is much better when you have a pay to play game because
Hmm.
someone spends 20
Yeah,
bucks, they're already invested for $20.
makes
They
sense.
download it for free. If they're pissed off in 2 seconds, they just uninstall it and they're gone
Right. Right.
because there's
Just the
no,
cost of bandwidth.
exactly right. And so like those were a couple of the big things. Where free, kind of what you need if you really want to get thousands of people in on launch on day one to
Mhm.
fill these huge matches, unless you can be sure that you are compelling enough to drive all these people in.
Sure.
And then the
Sure.
other side of it was still Apex Legends had just come out, not
Mm.
you know, and they're
Was
free.
Apex free too? Yeah, it was free.
Yeah, it's free.
Okay.
And so there's a lot of it there. Now, I forgot where the hell I was going with that, but so we launched. It came out. It wasn't Planetside 3. Everybody
Uh-huh.
wanted Planetside 3. And that's a huge thing. And I don't blame anybody. I don't blame anybody for that at all because like as a fan, you're sitting there and you're like, what is this? Where the hell is Planetside 3?
Mhm.
Why do I have a BR game that and I hate to say this, nobody asked for. There's at least one person out there. Someone out there said, "I wish Planetside had a battle royale." At least one person.
I've
So
talked to
therefore,
creators about this, like diehard Planetside guys, to be like, a Royale and Planetside would be really fun.
yeah,
Like they don't. The idea of it isn't the problem. It's all the how do you implement it?
yeah,
Yeah.
yep. And it wasn't PS3, and I think that was a big thing, and so it was tough, when we got that going and we started things rolling,
So how
and we had
important?
launched.
It sounds like if I could just pause there for a second, it sounds
Yeah, yeah,
like in your mind, the opinion of the Planetside community, which is not necessarily people who are playing the game day to day, but who have played it, who know what Planetside is, who are
mhm,
somehow still there's a part of them inside them that says Planetside, like way in the dark corner in the back of their brain. Like
yeah,
it was really important to you to speak to those people. It is a Planetside game, of course.
yeah,
I guess there's like as a fan, the question I remember asking myself at that time, well, is like, okay, a battle royale for PlanetSide, there's only like 2,000 people playing PlanetSide 2. How can they make a battle royale game, and is that going to eat PlanetSide 2? Like, there's a whole bunch of like, as a fan, what should I be expecting from this? It was a little
yeah,
confusing. In fact, if it had been a totally different IP, I mean, obviously it wouldn't have been as interesting to the PlanetSide base, but I think it would have been more understandable.
yeah,
So,
yeah. It's I think it's the number of people who are playing Planetside versus the size of the Planetside community are
hmm,
vastly different. And it was
right.
one of those, is this something that can reinvigorate the Planetside community? Not who's playing Planetside 2. Because those numbers are way different from each other.
Right.
From PS1 and PS2 and all the people who play PS2. The
Like, I
PS
haven't played
the
PlanetSide 2 in, like, probably 4 or 5 months, but I still keep up with it. I
you
still
still keep
watch
up with it,
creators
exactly.
making videos about it. I'm still interested in it. I'll still probably load it up on a random weekend
Yeah.
because,
You know.
like, there are so many great games I want to play, PlanetSide being one of them, but time is, like,
Mhm.
time's the
Yeah,
problem.
time's limited. Yeah, no, 100%. And I can't remember how many actual like players are in the PlanetSide community, but it is, it's millions, millions and millions of people that are in that community. It's huge, a huge, huge community.
Mhm,
And so there's this question of, you know, can people be re-engaged in the PlanetSide if we give them something different?
mhm,
Um, and the problem was, one, what was made. Two, there wasn't a budget for some huge marketing spend or anything to
right,
actually raise awareness to ping all the people who are interested in PlanetSide but aren't following PlanetSide because those are two completely different people.
mhm,
Because that's just a totally different demographic of individual. Um, and so there wasn't that done. So what did you end up with? You had a game that the people who are actively playing PlanetSide didn't really care about because for the reasons you just mentioned, is this going to eat in my game? Do I play this or that? Like
mhm,
these things are conflicting with each other. What the hell is going on?
mhm,
And then it's not PlanetSide 3. So what do I do here? I don't understand.
mhm.
And so I think those are some of the real big issues that it faced. And that was after all the stuff with Apex coming out and eating
Yeah,
our lunch,
yeah.
just killing it when they launched and when they released. Fortnite continued to be the insane force that it
Yeah,
is in that
just
space.
it's
Like that thing
insane.
took over the world, you know.
Yeah. Well, the world is working on it. Like,
Yeah, yeah,
the amount of
a lot
content
of
they
people.
push through that game is amazing.
It's nuts, dude. Um, and then while all that's going on, PUBG still doing its thing.
Yeah.
Call of Duty comes out with like two battle royales.
Mhm,
Battlefield comes out with their own battle royale. Then there's that talks of Halo coming out with a battle royale, and they say the only BR they're going to have is the battle rifle, but we'll see how that goes.
for now.
For now, exactly. You know what I mean? And so like there
There
was
is a
all
joke.
in like by the time we were able to get to market after we took our pause after Apex,
Mhm.
it was so saturated. It was just it, yeah, I was trying to, we were trying to climb Mount Everest in a t-shirt and shorts. Like it wasn't happening.
Mhm.
It just
Mhm.
we were not equipped to deal with any
Mhm.
of that. Um
So,
and yeah.
Yeah, like the writing's on the wall at this point. It feels
Yeah.
like. What happens next?
Yeah. So, and this is, I don't want to say it's funny because it's actually really, really sad. Uh, Throughout this entire time, like H1Z, Planetside Mercs, H1Z1, Planetside Arena, you had this tiny little corner of the building, right? That has like freaking Wrel in it, working on Planetside 2. And it's just like, somebody, for the love of God, notice me. Please, I just need like a few people. Somebody give me something. Jesus H. Christ, what is going on? Damn it. Like, and it, for
I can
years,
imagine
right?
him as like
He's just,
gazing out
oh,
into it, being like,
dude.
"Sorry,
And
go on,
so,
please."
no, it's, and like, I knew of the Planetside 2 crew when I had first started.
Yeah,
Didn't interact with them, a ton. It was just everybody was super busy. One reason or another. For
yeah,
some
they got
reason, in
their own
game
stuff to do.
studios, when you have like multiple teams in the same building, there isn't as much cross pollination as you would expect. I don't know. I can't explain to you why. There just isn't.
Interesting.
Like you're nice to each other and stuff, but you're never like, "Hey, dude, what do you do?" Like it just doesn't happen. I don't know if everybody's just so damn busy that you don't take time or whatever.
Mm. Or just
But
awkward game
anyway, and
devs doing
yeah,
doing
just
what they do best, which is not necessarily being a social butterfly.
socially interact. Yeah, exactly. Um, and so throughout this whole thing, Rel is just trying to get some traction for some. Meanwhile, like, you hear stuff about the Planetside 2 community giving them crap or whatever. And I'm just like,
Mm.
if you guys only had half a clue, you'd stop talking and you just, give the man
Mm.
some respect. So if you've given Rel crap, apologize because he's worth it. But, and
He
so
is worth it.
he is
I've
worth it. He's a
I've
good
had
dude.
the
He
I've had the
genuinely
great
cares.
pleasure. Right, he does genuinely care. I've had the great pleasure
Yeah.
of interviewing him a couple times. I'm sure we'll talk again. Like,
Yeah.
this is a guy who cares a dramatic amount, more than I think probably anyone else in the Planetside community
Yeah.
ever,
Yeah.
maybe.
Yeah.
And
No,
he's this guy who
I,
who's put himself on the line. I've heard some of the stories, and for this thing, and he doesn't get loved for it.
yeah. Because people don't know. They have no idea. And I think that's one of the hardest things about being a dev is people see what comes out. People will read the dev blog. Maybe they'll watch a Twitch stream, but there's so much more that goes on. Um, I won't speak to super specifics, but like I have seen him get heated with executive management over stuff in the game, and
Mm,
like we were we were in one meeting. I remember sitting there. I was sitting on a couch next to him, and we're going back and forth about something. And I could tell he was getting irritated. And then he just leans forward and puts his elbows on his knees and just goes at it. And it was one of those where I'm like, here we go. And I just leaned back in my seat and he just went for it. And it was like, because he was just passionate and he cared and he had enough and he just had to get it off his chest. And I'm just like, please don't get fired. Please don't get fired. Please don't get fired. And he was just letting it go. And it worked because after that, he's had more control. He's been able to do what he wanted to do. And I feel like the last, 2 years of Planetside have been pretty damn good. He's gotten
it's been
resources,
totally different as a fan the
totally
last
different.
2 years
And
compared to before that.
I blame that moment as one of those ones because he had just had enough.
Yeah,
And like I said, it gets tough because you'll see people give him crap. And it's like, y'all don't know the half of it. You don't even know the quarter of it. And I know it's easy to sit there and think that you do. But like, he really does care. So anyway, shout out to Wrel. Don't stop being awesome.
there you
That's
go,
all I
Rel.
got.
Any other good? Any other? You had just to work with him a little bit, right?
Oh
After
yeah,
Arena.
yeah. So yes,
Are
that's
we skipping ahead, by
so
the way? Like, is
what's
there
that?
like a big moment, like when things finished with Arena? Like, was there like a how did did it just sort of peter out and die, or was there like a moment?
No, it was kind of petering. I was in denial. I worked with Kevmo. We got the capture the flag mode out. Finally got my capture the flag mode out there,
Yay!
and it didn't go anywhere. Which was
Yeah.
the game was toast at that point, but I was still trying.
Hmm.
Um, but like, the big takeaway for me on PSA, there were like I think a few really key. One was the early game when it was just the 8 of us or whatever, and we were just having fun. like pinnacle of my career easily.
Mm-hmm.
The next one would have been the art style. So Nick, our lead level designer, and this is what I was talking about earlier when it comes to a lot of collaboration. We wanted to make the Forgelight engine not look so dated because
Mm.
like Planetside's a great game. Planetside graphically feel a little old. I don't
Well,
think that's a surprise to anybody, right?
it's a geezer. It's been out there
Um,
for a decade.
yeah, exactly, right. And so we want to do something. So Nick came up with this idea, and I'm pretty sure he worked with Alan on this, and or maybe it was James, and to come up with the art style for Planetside Arena, right? Which
Uh
was
huh. Uh huh.
pseudo Borderlands esque, but not really, but cell
The
shaded to an
color.
extent to give it that clean look.
Yeah.
And so that was another one because I felt like we got that engine looking the best that it had ever looked. Like some of the screenshots, the stuff that Alan did with the skyboxes was phenomenal. Like, yeah, it's just
Yeah.
like, and the color was there. It was, oh, it was so good. And because there were a few things that we had figured out on the design side where I was like, hey, I'm seeing the same feedback from every BR. No one can see anybody when they're far away. What can we do about visibility? And so like
Mm.
there were a lot of goals with the art style just to like help that out. And so Nick was working on this thing. He's
Silhouettes,
like,
stuff like
we
that.
got it. Yeah, exactly. And so like I know art style is always super subjective. Some people like it, some people hate it. I
Mm-hmm.
loved it. And so that was like one of the other big things. And then the last one was the oh my god, I can't remember. I don't remember the name of it, dude. Oh my god. What the hell did we call it? Jesus.
A
Basically the
game
sparrow
mode?
from Destiny.
Oh,
The
the
hoverbike.
the I can't think of the name of it either.
Dude.
The jet bike.
Yeah. I gotta Google
Uh,
the game I was lead designer on. How in freaking oh my god.
yeah,
I need to
Javelin.
know.
It's called the Javelin in Planetside too right now because it got ported over. That wasn't what it was
Yeah.
called in Arena though.
No. You gotta be kidding. Was it the Tempest?
I don't know, but
Tempest. It was the Tempest.
it was
Jesus.
in one of the promotional videos.
Yeah, it was like one of our main things.
Yeah,
So
it was cool.
yeah, so I'll never forget it. Troy, he was a designer. He came to me one day and he's like, "Dude, we need a hover bike." And I just laughed at him. I was like, "Bro, we can't do a hover bike, man. This is Forgelight." And I was like, "I'm gonna tell you what. You go make whatever you want to make, and if you can make it well enough, then I'll give it the green and we'll put it in the game." And he was like,
Prove it.
"Really?" I was like, "Bro, just prove it to me. I don't care. Like, you're passionate about it. You believe in it. I believe in what you want to believe in. So go do it." So he figures out some crazy weird way to use the vehicle system to do things it's not supposed to do. And he gets this quad that doesn't have any wheels on it,
Uh huh.
floating and kind of bumping into stuff. And I was like, "You've got to be kidding me." He's like, "Yeah, dude, I'm getting it." I was like, "Oh my God." I was like, "All right, man of my
Beautiful.
word, keep on
Just
trucking." And
cludge it
so
in there.
he did, right? And so he got it far enough to the point where I was like, "Can we get you an engineer to get you some engineering support? Maybe if you had some code, you can do some more stuff." And sure enough, he was able to take that thing all the way to something that Forge Light. It had its issues, but it was one of those things where it was like a perfect example of something that I never would have considered because I figured we didn't have time or we didn't have tech or we didn't have whatever. But I realized that somebody was passionate enough about it to go make it happen, and he did. And to his credit, like, I think it was a ton of fun,
Mm-hmm.
and it went right in the line of one of the other things, which was for the battle royales. In H1, for example, you would always run around and try to find a car. And if you couldn't find a car, it sucked because you couldn't get anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Well, now we had this map in Planetside that was freaking Planetside scale. It was freaking huge. And so, what was the last thing I want somebody to do? Spend 10 minutes trying to find a quad. So, hey, Realm Royale was out at the time, another battle royale that came out.
Mm-hmm.
Realm Royale was out. They had a horse that you could just summon. I was like, why don't we just summon this thing? And
Mm-hmm.
so, and that's kind of what it turned into. But there were a lot of, I think, really cool individual wins. In PSA, even the bastion that you would spawn into when you were running around like before the match and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Burness put that thing together in a tool that was not supposed to do that at all, and
Interesting.
basically if I remember correctly, he like was assembling this thing in like a text file. It wasn't even like a world editor. It was like coordinates and points or something. I can't really remember, but it was one of
He was
those like
playing with the
once
deep
it worked.
magic.
Yo, yeah, like once it worked, it was like nobody touch anything because I don't know what's gonna happen,
It took a
but I'm
wizard
guessing
to
it's not gonna
create
go well.
this.
Yeah,
Unless you're a wizard.
like yeah, absolute black magic that man freaking pulled out of you know where in order to get that thing to work. I was mind blown.
That's
I was like, oh
awesome.
yeah, let's just edit my text file real quick, and I'm like, what? Anyway, but there's just a lot of stuff like that where like people were super creative to get things to work, and because they wanted to see it work, they wanted to see it come to life, and like that was like the exciting part about it.
That must feel
It was
really
just
gratifying. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
no, go for it.
I was gonna say that must be very gratifying as someone who's leading the project
Oh,
to be able
absolutely.
to be the person to enable people to get the wins that get them excited.
Oh, 100%. I mean, like at the end of the day, especially in that scenario, it was a bunch of people who had worked on Planetside, or a bunch of people who had 10 or 15 years in those tools.
Yeah.
I had been at the company for 2.5, 3 years at that point or something.
Mm-hmm.
Who was I?
Mm.
Nobody. Maybe I had some ideas, and maybe I was the one that Andy wanted to lead the project from what I had learned on H1 in terms of like BR and stuff. Because again, when it started, it was Planetside Mercs, and so it was supposed to be
Yeah.
BR, and so my
Let's say Andy
history
saw
was
something.
relevant.
You know,
What's
the
that?
old Iron Sights had you in his sights. He saw something
He
there.
did. He did. He may. He may. Maybe. Maybe be the reason why I'm going to Amazon. But
I wondered.
yeah, he's a.
That's legit. That makes me really
I'll
happy.
I'll follow that man pretty much to the ends of the earth. I
Oh
have more
man.
respect for him than he has any idea. I mean, he may know now because I mean I've said it before though. But no, he is. He's a good person. He's a friend, and
Okay.
I love him to death. So, but it's just one of those things. Like I had the experience where I had it, and I can lean into that experience for what I needed to. But those guys had so much more knowledge than I did.
Mm-hmm.
If I were to ignore it, like that thing would have freaking burnt harder than it did.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I
It's a,
mean?
yeah. It's a fool to not
But
accept good help, good advice.
yeah,
Foolish.
plus it's about being collaborative, right?
Mm.
Like I'm not there to be like Planetside, a Carto story. Like that's some BS. Like we just wanted to make a cool game together, and that's all it was about.
Yeah. I think I'm gonna draw what I'm sure is a wildly unfair and in non-equivalent comparison. But you brought up Yoshi P some time ago. And I
Oh yeah.
think, like, in order to do what he did
Hmm.
for Final Fantasy requires an enormous amount of buy-in at
Yeah.
all levels, right? I think the thing that's sort of more visible to gamers and people who are, stalking Reddit is where he inspires people below him to do great work, and he holds the vision and he communicates to the
Hmm.
community as sort of him down, but it's the him up that you don't see, where he can
Yeah.
get the buy-in from. And that's not something that he has control over. That might just go away one day. And there might be a decision that gets made for whatever reason that, sorry, Yoshi P, you got to make a battle royale.
Yeah. And that's just it. You just never know, right? Because until you're the one signing the paycheck, because at the end of that, like people just come out, well, why don't you just do whatever? And I was like, look, let's say that you had a job at Target, all right, and you worked in the electronics department, and you walked into work one day, and they're like, hey, we're gonna take everything on all the shelves and put them on different shelves. You're gonna tell them no? No. You may be like, dude, why are you wasting my time? Why do I have to do this? This doesn't seem to make any sense. But at the end of the day, you're gonna move what's on what shelf, even
Mm-hmm.
though you may not agree with it.
Mm-hmm.
So until you're the one signing the paycheck, it's just one of those things you gotta understand. Like, and it's tough, but like the best thing you can do as a dev is you voice your opinion. You keep it as professional as possible. Sometimes passion comes in front of that, and that's totally fine. And if you're overruled and the decision is made to do against your wishes, and you do the best damn job that you can, and that's all you can do. And then hopefully you get another shot to do that in the future, because like it's not my money, it was their money. I was just there. It was my job.
Play the
And
hand
it's
you're
tough.
dealt.
Yeah, exactly, right? And you try to make the best hand that you can, and you pray it's a good enough hand to win the game. But in this market, that's a very hard game to win.
Ain't easy. Ain't easy.
Yeah.
Anything else? So the final days of Arena. Any
Yeah.
anecdotes to share, or is it pretty much just one day? It was like, okay, we're done here.
Yeah, so like the team little by little started to peel off and started to work on Planetside 2 again and
Hmm.
go back to that way cuz planets and it's so funny to me. And I say funny with bated breath. Wrel is asking for people for all these years.
Yeah.
H1Z1 comes and goes, Planetside Arena comes and goes, all the other projects inside of Daybreak either come up or go down.
Uh,
Wrel is still trying to get some freaking just love and attention. And then all the way to the end of the final days, what's still around and what still needs some love? Planetside 2 is just sitting there. Well, I guess we could work on that, huh? And so Rel finally got some love and attention. Way too freaking late, but I guess not way too late. The game still it came out wrong, but
it
finally
could have
got
been
his
earlier.
attention.
It was
Should have been,
wanted earlier.
dude. It should have been way earlier. But the and so yeah, so some of the peeps started working on Planetside 2. If I remember correctly, like we started splitting time. Spend a few hours down Arena and spend a few hours down Planetside 2 and kind of go back and forth.
Mm,
And then I think the big push was for the escalation update. And that
right.
was when I was like, all right, so here's the deal. We have this Bastion from PSA, and we want to do something cool and awesome and crazy with PS2. So PSA didn't do what it was going to do. Company's announcing the shutdown. Let's go all in on PS2. And it's what we did. And so, that's when we moved over. And if I remember correctly, at that point in time, I think there were 18 of us on PSA, PS2 together, and like all in all encompassing. I think that was about how many people we had. And it was the biggest team that PlanetSide 2 had seen in 5 years or
Mm-hmm.
whatever it was since I had started at Daybreak. I
Mm-hmm.
guess 4 years at that point. And so we started working on PS2, and it was at first, it was tough for me because it was just like PSA shouldn't have been what it was. Damn it! Like this isn't how
You
the
still
history
felt
should have.
shitty about it. How could you
I
not?
did, yeah, and I think it was tough because there was
You're still in the
there was
building where the thing that you got excited about got dashed against the wall,
it got dashed again,
and you still
and
got to
and
show
then when it
up.
didn't
Ugh.
didn't go well, it was, oh well, you guys didn't make a good game or whatever it was, and it was like
Did someone
this
say
isn't
that
what
to
we
you?
wanted to make. Yeah, like oh man, it was anyway. But so and that was tough.
Oh,
It
I'm
was tough.
sorry, man. I'm sorry, man. I'm
It's
sorry that, like, and also this is sort of an echo of how things ended at H1Z1 for you too, right? Where there's
yeah,
this
yeah.
big
It
thing
was
and a lot of feedback that went the wrong way, and
yeah, yeah.
that must have been
But
really
again,
difficult.
it sucked, but it was what it was.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
when you're a dev, you're just kind of thankful to have a job. And I try to think about like the worst day of my life. I'm still making video games, so it's still a pretty big W. So
yeah.
you have a
Not
series of
installing
bad days,
Windows.
and yeah, exactly. You just suck it up, and then you push forward. And that's what we did. And so
Yeah.
with PS2, um, I remember Wrel just being really really awesome because I was just like the lead designer of his other projects. I was just like moving on to his project, and he was very very courteous and very very kind. Um,
Really.
and it was like so what do you want to do? Because obviously I wasn't going to lead that project at all.
Hmm.
And that's when I actually got back into level design, and so I started working on, and I was lead level designer for it again, and I had a ton of fun, and it was just a
Mm.
really really good time. We did the desolation map, and then for the next big update, I started doing work on Esamir and whatnot to get the new facilities and stuff in, and all
Hmm.
those kinds of things. And so the transition at first was rough. Um, I don't want to say that my ego was bruised. I was just bummed. I was just down.
Yeah.
Like PSA, did its thing. And then we all ended up on PS2 and restructured some stuff, worked some stuff out, and then we just started having fun again, and that was good.
Yeah.
And then I worked on that for 8 months, I think, almost
Hmm.
a year,
Hmm.
and then I found my way back to PlayStation.
Hmm.
But
I
yeah, that was
remember.
kind of how
Mhm.
PSA. Yeah, that's how PSA kind of ended. and the transition over to PS2 started, and it was amazing because for the longest time, Wrel was always like, if you can just get us some resources, we can do some stuff. And then we launched Escalation, and then PS2 is as healthy as it's ever been
Hmm.
in, you know, like the history of PS2 sans like the first few months of launch.
Right.
Like it just came back so hard, and he was just like, "I told you." It's just one of those things, and so
That was a super exciting moment for the community to be like,
yeah, it was
"What?
awesome.
Planetside
Yeah,
is supposed to be on life support. Like, what is going on
yeah,
here?"
yeah. And it was it was, and it worked out really well. And so
Okay.
that update went well. The community reacted to the update really well.
Mm.
I think the bastions, the way they were put in and the way they were implemented, was just like it went really well. Just the content that was turned out from it, it was just ridiculous.
It's kinda crazy you can make
Um,
bastions work. Like, it
yeah,
like, they don't move like vehicles. Like, I imagine there's quite a lot of long nights of people trying to figure out, how do we even get this thing to work?" And maybe
it
some
was a
text files
lot.
from Burness, I don't know.
Yeah. So the big thing with the bastions was the collision. Moving collision is a huge pain.
Mm,
And Forgelight is not young, and so you can imagine. And so there was I don't know if he's on social media, so we'll just call him Chris.
okay.
But he was tech director. Ottonel helped out a lot as well while he was on. He was big on H1, and he helped us on PSA PS2 for a bit.
Okay.
But they did a lot of magic to get an old engine to do things it was just never designed to do.
Mhm.
And so getting the bastions, driving them was always going to be one of those things like we can't drive this like a normal vehicle. It's too big. Having something that big moving with any kind of quickness that it's not happening. It's just going to
Yeah,
cause all sorts
right.
of issues. And so then the what do you call it? The implementation and how it ended up going was all just kind of somewhat a result of a limitation, but at the same time, I feel like it ended up turning out pretty well for its size and its function and what it, the role that this thing is supposed to
Mhm,
carry out. And
mhm.
so, and it did. And we some of the launch trailers that the community was nuts, absolutely nuts. Just the amount of support for videos and people showing up for playtests in order to like fill the skies with aircraft and this and that. Like
Right.
it was really really cool. And it's one of those things. And I H1 had a great community as well. Um, but the Planetside community just hits different. They just the way they showed up in force. I think the big thing for me was I remember like H1Z1 trying to get people organized for a playtest.
Mhm,
It's freaking impossible.
mhm.
And I don't know what kind of setup the leaders in the Planetside 2 community have over their communities, but y'all are orchestrated. Like, oh my, like people did what they needed to do and people listened. And I was just like, what the hell is going on? Like, this is impressive. Like, this doesn't happen. Like, hey, we need everybody over here. And then everybody would just kind of move. And I'm like, how, what? Holy crap. It was so impressive. So,
Yeah.
whatever y'all are doing, keep
That's
doing
a
it because
it's a beautiful thing about the Planetside scene is because the way it just happens to be that the way the game is made, like, these communities form
yeah,
around small groups of players that become big groups of players. They have their own internal organization, and because you wanna get
yep,
48 guys from here to there, and you wanna win the fight,
yep,
there's a whole
yep,
bunch of communication and stuff like that,
yep.
so and I've
Because,
had the pleasure of working with, not working with, of playing with a couple of them. Shout out to Bushido
mhm.
Way. I know that they also have done some play testing, so
Yeah.
it's pretty cool, and
Yeah, I
it's
was
really cool for you to call out as that being very noticeably different when it comes to this community.
oh, dude, night and day. Night and day. I remember sitting there just like watching it all happen and just like my mind is being blown and I'm just like, "Andy, why is this working?" And he was like, "It's a Planetside community, dude." And I was like, "This is awesome."
That's cool.
It's just like
I love
I was
that.
so getting ready to freaking like herd cats or something, but like it was and I'm guessing everybody leading each one of the individual they were hurting their own cats, but
Oh,
it
yeah.
never showed to us on our side. And it was always like, yep, no problem. And then it would happen. And I'm like, damn, call me impressed.
Cool. Cool.
Really freaking rad.
Yeah, man. That
Yeah.
Planetside community, it's different.
It is. It is. It's one of those things and and people from H1 still pop in all the time too. And people from Planet Side 2 pop in all the time just to say what's up or, whether they're popping
Yeah.
in the stream or whatever. And it's it's cool to see those familiar faces. Um, and as a dev, it gets tough at times because some people can be very negative and very toxic. And I went through the whole phase of death threats and doxing and all that other kind of crap. And you do your best to let that stuff roll off because there's a lot of really really awesome people in the community, right? Like so, like from the H1 days, whether Flamehopper or Grimmy or Piney or it's all of them that I met over the years, and then friends of friends and friends, and like they make up for it as well. And
Yeah.
it's I get if you're one of the people in the community that's like super dope and a super chill vibe, thank you, keep doing you, because y'all are the reason we get through all the negativity. Because like it's one of those things, people don't go to the internet to give praise, they go to the internet to yell at you. So
Yeah.
every now and then you get someone that's like, yo, this is awesome, thanks, and you're like, that comment's going to carry me through another 3 weeks, I appreciate you, and we will continue to march on.
Take a screenshot of that. So
But yeah.
you just mentioned like having your stream on, having people pop in. I feel like we totally skipped past your decision to start streaming. When did that
Oh yeah,
when did that happen?
it's one of the, I remember the first time I did, I think that it's still the hardest thing I've ever done, but 24-hour streams, they hit different
You've
because
done a few of
that's,
those?
yeah, I do one per year. I do it for Extra Life,
Oh, that's
the
cool.
fundraising thing. And yeah, we start normally on like 9 p.m. on a Friday and we go till 9 p.m. on Saturday.
Uh
And
huh.
it's crazy how just the energy of doing it keeps you going.
Uh huh.
Um and yeah, once you get the ball rolling, like you just full send, you just keep on trucking.
That's amazing. I've never done that. The longest, actually, I've learned about myself that the longer I usually engage with video games, like the less happy I am. Like
Ah,
I need to keep my sessions kind of like 2 hours is kind of like my ideal. 3 hours is
uh-huh.
can be okay.
Yeah,
But
that's
streaming is a
fine.
different beast.
Yeah,
The
it's fun. It's the sense of community, and you can feed off energy from chat and stuff, and you just kind of keep rolling, which is great.
Yeah, it doesn't even need
Um,
to be a game necessarily, right? It's all
yeah,
about being in there in the moment with those people.
yep, yeah. I mean, there's been nights where I've went to fire stream up for playing whatever, Astroneer or name anything else, and uh, we'll get on the topic of like computer hardware, and then before I know it, like a 3.5 hour stream is behind me, and I haven't played a single game, and we've just talked about computer hardware for like 3.5 hours, and what cases are people using and what CPUs and what do we think is coming up next and what do we think about prices of GPUs or whatever it may be, and just go down that rabbit hole. And it's like, well, it's 1 a.m. guys, I'm going to bed. That was a good stream later.
Nice, nice.
It's just, but yeah, I guess to get to the question from before, how did I get into streaming?
Yeah.
Um, it was H1Z1. The community was, I felt like really hungry for answers to relatively basic questions. The community team was doing just an absurd amount of stuff anyway. Because I mean, the community team at Daybreak had H1Z1, it had Planetside, it had EverQuest, DCU, like had all these different things that they're working on.
Mhm.
And I was like, I feel like we get the same like 30 questions. So why don't I just stream? Someone can come in the stream, and I'll just answer it, and then they have their answer. And
So your idea,
you know,
you saw a
yeah,
need.
it's like yeah, I figured it'd be helpful, right? And put a face to it.
Had
And
you ever streamed before at that point? Like, dabbled in it or okay.
nope, no, never even. It was funny before H1Z1. The idea of Twitch baffled me. I was like, who the hell would watch anybody else play a video game? Just go play a video game. This is dumb. And then, but it's funny, right? Because like I grew up with forums, I was always on forums, and it was always that sense of community.
Yep.
And I didn't realize that with Twitch, and then I started doing it, and I was like, this is like a live forum. Like people
Yeah.
coming to chat, not only saying hi to the streamer, but saying hi to each other and like talking about day to day stuff. And I was like, this is really freaking cool. Like, holy crap, I can't believe I ever did it. Because it's not about the game. The
Yeah.
game may be what brings people there
Yeah.
to begin with, but then they all come back for each other. And like in that community aspect, it was freaking rad. But yeah, so I started with just to answer questions, right? And then we got into a bunch of other stuff, and then Autinel, he started doing the same thing. He started streaming, and he would run his cheater beater session where he would like be banning people and stuff. They were cheating online live, and I started doing that. We had a lot of fun doing that kind of stuff, and
That's
people would
juicy.
complain about hit reg, and then I do like clip reviews and be like, well, this is where you shot, this is where your reticle is,
Oh, that
this
is
is
so
why you
hot.
missed.
That is hot.
Yeah,
I
and
love that.
it's just like back and forth,
That
and
is
it's funny
fun.
because like it was so much fun because people would come in and be like, your game sucks. Look at this clip. How did I miss? And then like you play it and like I load it into Photoshop and go frame by frame, be like, this is where you pulled the trigger. Your
Yeah.
reticle is nowhere near this guy's head. You missed because you missed. And then they wouldn't say anything and they go away. And we
Giving
had
shit back
there,
to
yeah,
a community of gamers who are perhaps all too comfortable with talking shit.
there were some where it was very much desync or very much hit reg, and
Uh,
there were issues. And that turned into actually a pretty cool bit where working with some of our engineers, people I was able to get a thing from our engineers, and people could run this thing on their local machine and it would record their gameplay, but it would record it in a way that a tool I had could then debug it. And so they would like send me their recording,
uh-huh.
and then I could load it into this thing, and you could see bullet, bullet origin, projectile path, where it
Cool.
hit,
Cool.
hitboxes, and so like I could go in like slow mo and see what was going on inside the game,
That's
and we
neat.
could see and we could understand like all these different things that were happening,
Capture the desync errors and see what the
and just
outcomes are.
capture it all so we could see it, and like so we could understand because it's so difficult. And I think this is a pretty big conversation. It's so difficult because, and I mean this in the most respectful way. I'm going to catch flack for this. There's so many people out there that swear to God they're Shroud, and they are just not Shroud. Like Shroud is Shroud, and that's why he is who he is. And I'm sorry, but like there are so many people who swear up and down that they're just like they're Shroud, and um they're not. And so it's very difficult because you get all the time where people will be like, there's desync, there's
Mm-hmm.
hit reg, game sucks, weapons are broken, and you can't tell like is it genuine?
Yeah.
Did they just miss and they have different expectations of what they're doing?
Are they a golfer
And
blaming their clubs for their poor performance?
yeah, dude, I used to do it. I golf when I lived in Florida, and I went out and spent a bunch of money in clubs, and guess what? I still sucked at golf, but like it was what it was. And so this tool was really helpful in letting us see what was actually going on. We can like
Mm-hmm.
dive in and be like, oh well, hey, in this instance, yeah, like I don't get it. Like dude's head hitbox is there. That path is going straight through. I don't know why I didn't register.
Mm-hmm.
Now we have an event, we have logs. Engineers can pull the logs, they can look into it and find out.
That's
Getting
the
to
holy grail
those,
right there.
yeah, it was
Like
awesome. It was
I
awesome,
have
but it was
a
also a huge pain.
I'm not in the gaming industry, but I'm in the software industry. I work at a startup
Mhm.
and I'm on the customer team. So a lot of what I'm doing is hearing anecdotes of this crazy thing happened with the thing. Can you help us understand like what's going on and why? I'm so much of the time I'm just like, I don't know.
Well,
And
I guess
you
I need
need
more than that.
you need something in order to help translate what they're saying into something that one of the engineers, which I am not, can actually act on and analyze and stuff like
Yeah,
that. So the job ends up being about those kinds of moments where it's like, oh, we need this kind of tool or this kind of software to capture these specific things and what does that need to look like and how can we give this to our community. And it's really cool that that was sort of catalyzed by your streaming decision.
yeah, because like we just wanted to see what was going on, and like it was always like trying to solve a puzzle without all the pieces,
Hmm.
and it was tough because like, and I think the esports side of H1 put a different light on it as well because it was so hyper competitive.
Oh,
Everything was always under wicked scrutiny, even more so. And
right.
then we'd have tournaments and the showdowns and then this and that, and so everything. And like at the end of the day, like it's in Forgelight, an engine not designed for this whatsoever,
Your favorite
just
engine.
making it work. Favorite engine. It, I'll give Forgelight credit. I
Can we
like
say
to
one
ride
nice
on
thing about
Forgelight.
Forgelight? Let's pick one
But
nice thing about Forgelight that we like. Thinking.
no, no. The the thing with Forgelight that is incredible. It is the scale, and no one can debate that whatsoever.
Sure.
Just the sheer scale that no one else has been able to pull off.
Hmm.
They're like, oh, look at us, battle royale. We have 100 people or 100 and whatever people, and it's just like, here's Planetside with
Hold
world
my beer.
records. You know,
Yeah.
1,300 people on a map or whatever. Like that 100 people, that's really cute. Like you can't get close. Can it do the other stuff? No, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But like it can do
Yeah.
that, and it can do that really well. I think lighting is another thing that actually Forgelight can actually do pretty well as well.
Huh.
Sometimes you get some of those skyboxes that Alan's whipped up, and you're like, damn, dude, like that looks really good. He's like, yeah, lighting's pretty good in this.
Huh.
But it's
Cool.
what
Cool.
when it comes down to little stuff, the textures or geo and stuff like that. That's obviously where it starts to kind of fall short.
Yeah.
But Forgelight does pretty well there. I think the other stuff for Forgelight too, some of the tools are actually quite decent. Um, they have the ability to update quite a few things without needing to do obviously client patches can just do server updates. Some things you
Hmm.
were actually able to update on the fly.
Hmm.
There's definitely some good points to
Hotfix.
Forgelight. I
Cool.
think the big thing with Forgelight is just it's super old, and they haven't had dedicated graphics engineers to upgrade the core of the engine.
Hmm. Hmm.
And
All
these
things
days, when so
age.
much rides on visuals, it just shows its
Yeah.
age. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Okay. So Forgelight does some things well,
It
some things
does.
not so well, and it's been around for a
Yep,
while. God
been a
bless it.
little bit. Yeah, and I think the other big thing with Forgelight too is a lot of people have asked for can we get community servers or whatever. There's a
Mm.
lot of the security bits that are embedded in the servers, which is why I'm pretty sure anyway they won't actually give out community servers because that's just kind of like opening the floodgates for source code and everything else because it's
Yeah.
kind of all integrated or whatever. So
Yeah. This isn't the
that stuff gets
'90s.
tough.
You can't give
Yeah,
away your servers anymore.
yeah,
Okay.
but yeah,
Okay.
good time.
Cool. So what were we talking about before the Forgelight tangent?
Uh, I think just streaming and stuff with how I got started and
Yeah.
just got into streaming and yeah, and then it just kind of took off. And then after I left H1, I kept doing it just because I had fun with it. It was a good
Yeah.
time. And then I did it for. I didn't really stream for PSA stuff. But then I started doing it again for PS2 when we did some of the talk to Andy, and Andy being as awesome of an individual as he is, he was like, "Yeah, dude, take a work PC home and stream yourself building levels and stuff if you want. I don't care, dude. Just don't show anything you're not supposed to show." And I was like, "Don't tell me twice." And so then we did, the Desolation stream where I was just sitting here just building.
Those
And
were
again, it
fun.
was just so people could come by,
Yeah. Yeah.
ask some questions, get some answers,
Mm.
and then they were happy because
Mm.
9 times out of 10 a gamer just wants to know what the hell's going on or what or why.
Yeah.
And it was one of the
And feel like they're
one
part
of
of
the
it.
yeah, they just want context.
Yeah.
Like when like people will still come to my stream from time to time and be like, "Dude, what the hell combat update why?" Like, bro, first off, it's 2022. Okay, like you got to let it go. Okay, this is unhealthy. This is an unhealthy relationship right now. Secondly, and then I break down the why, and I was like trying to make it more accessible, trying to get more people in the door, trying to grow the franchise, and they go, "Oh, yeah, I guess that makes sense." But no one ever told them why. All they know is their game got completely changed with no context and no reason, and they were mad at
Right.
it, you
Right.
know? And but you tell them the why, and it's like they can rationalize. And some people are like, "That's bull," and you're like, "Cool. I don't know what
And,
else you want from me, dude. Like
yeah.
I
What
can't."
What do you do with that? And
Yeah,
I guess then the interesting thing to point out that might be interesting is like, why did they have to hear it from you on a stream 5 years later?
I don't
Right.
know.
Yeah.
I don't know. They come in all the time. I'd say probably I still get 2 or 3 people. Probably at this rate, it's down to like 2 or 3 people a month that'll pop in and be like, "Hey, dude, can you just tell me what happened with H1?"
Yeah.
Yeah, man, sure. I don't mind. Um,
Okay.
but yeah,
Those
I think people
stories,
just yeah, the story and the insight. That's what
the
they're looking for.
stories of when things don't go right,
Hmm.
I think they're always hard to tell.
Yeah.
They're always hard to tell, and
Yep.
it's not. It's also not always clear whose story it is to tell. Like
Yeah.
I've chatted with Wrel a couple times, like I mentioned, and Arena has come up, and whenever it does, he's just like, I mean, I don't push him on it, but he's like, it's not my story. I'm like,
Yeah.
I get it, I get it. Like maybe he knows
Yeah.
a few things. He probably could have shared some insights, but he wants to respect the people who actually should be telling that story.
Yeah. Yeah. It's he saw a lot. Um, but when it was He wasn't in there in the meetings with, execs and stuff and those
Yeah.
discussions, and so he's
Yeah.
probably like, I'm not gonna. I guarantee you he has opinions, 100%. I know he has opinions, and his opinions are uh, righteous and rightfully so. But and it's tough. I think the PSA thing, just in general, the if Planetside Mercenaries would have just kept going back in 2016, I think it would have been fine, because then Daybreak would have had 2 BR games out before there was anything else on the market,
Mm-hmm.
and they would have held that, that cornerstone. But the switch, the delay, the reset, Apex, and then the ultimate launch, that was what, 4 years later, 3 4
Yeah.
years later,
Yeah.
is like it had changed way too much. It was just too late.
Yeah. Yeah, man. Well, and then after all that, the thing to do is just to try to learn from it and move on, right?
Yeah, yeah, and that's, every project you're on, there's always key takeaways. There's always, uh, I think one of the most important is the relationships that you established,
Yeah.
and so like, um, during H1Z1, I worked with a bunch of the people that were on PSA,
Mhm.
but then we weren't really super close until PSA, when it was only the 8 of us. And now, I'm sure you've seen him on Twitter a few times, but Chris Bishop, one of the artists, he's
Yeah.
on PS2 now. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, I don't think he's on social, so we'll just say Rich. But Rich, he's one of the UI lead, and I talk to those guys and Andy every day, and it's just one of those things. Like, even now, I haven't worked with them in over 2 years,
Yeah.
but every day, wake up in the morning, hop into Discord, morning boys,
Yeah.
and we just go back and forth, because it's that relationship, and it's
Yeah.
one of those things where the people that you meet and the are more important than the projects that you work on. So you can go ship a Barbie game. If you're with the right group of people, you'll have fun doing it. But you can also go ship Halo, and if you're with a whole bunch of people that you don't vibe with, it's going to be a terrible time.
Yeah, I'm just thinking about that. Can you say that one more time?
Yeah, yeah, no, it's
The
the
people you
people you work
meet,
with are more important than the project you're working on.
the people you
Uh,
work with are more important than the project you're working on.
yeah. The
I
first gig,
love that kind of insight. As a
yeah,
gamer, someone on my
yeah,
side of the aisle, like, it's the kind of thing we can only guess at. We see you sitting on a stream next to Wrel, and we're like, I wonder what these guys talk about at lunch. You know? Does it go any further than
yeah,
that for me? I don't know.
yeah, yeah. No, it's
Tell me more about that, about it being more important. I've heard you use the word family.
oh
This
yeah, no,
interests me a
it's
lot.
a family,
Yeah.
100%. The My first gig in the industry on Defiance, I remember, going back and forth, and there was an engineer. His name was Mike, and he was always he's a really fun dude, very very straight to the point. And I remember bumping into him one day, and I forget how the conversation got started. And it was just about, the project and people and this and that, and like not getting too attached. And I was like, what? Why wouldn't I get too attached? Like, I love the game, I love the project. He goes, at some point, every video game ends up, and this is going to date myself, ends up in the $5 bin in Walmart. Every
Mm.
game, doesn't matter what it is, they all go away. But the people, they don't. And you'll run into them, and it's true. Like, uh, you know, Andy. So I worked with Andy, obviously, he hired me at Daybreak, and then followed him over to Rogue Planet. I'm following him again
Mhm.
over here to Amazon,
Mhm.
and I will continue to go. I've worked with the same people at 2, 3, 4 studios, and you just keep running into each other, and it's all different games. Could be a baseball game, could be a shooter, and could be an MMO, and it's like,
Mhm.
there they are again, and it doesn't the project doesn't matter. The project's
Mhm.
always going to change, but the people stay the same, because it's like it's just a tiny little family.
Yeah, and even someone at your level, is not deciding what game gets made. Not really,
Mm-mm.
not at the
No.
highest level, but you are deciding how to be with the people you work with.
Yeah.
That's what you
Yep.
can choose.
Yeah. No, it's and it's you get late in development and you're crunching or whatever you may be doing, and you're working a lot, you're working super late, and you just want to
Yeah.
be around people who you can vibe with, right? And so like we had this discussion at PlayStation quite a few times when we were going over like interns and stuff and like looking at the intern program
Mhm.
and bringing in new faces, and it's like some of the interns that were coming in, like they are way smarter than I could ever wish to be. Like some of the stuff that these people are studying in college, and I'm just like, I was playing freaking Halo and eating Cheetos. Like, what are like? Oh my god! Like, you are so smart, but like at the same time, I would rather work with somebody who is less intellectually capable, but is easier to get along with than I
Mm.
would with somebody who's a complete savant that is an absolute jerk.
Mhm.
Because that, when it starts getting late in the cycle and it starts getting to 2 a.m. or 3 a.m. and you're still at work, whoever's sitting next to you better be really freaking cool because the two of you are stressed out beyond belief and you just want to hang out and vibe. It's so important.
Yeah. The ability to collaborate, to
Yeah.
be, someone that someone looks forward to meeting in the hall rather than the other way
Yep.
around. Like,
Yeah.
that becomes on any and the need to trust the person
Yep.
you're working with,
Yeah.
right?
Yep. Exactly. Like, and that's, like I said, and that's what makes it, the people are way more important than the project
That's
because
what
they're
makes
the
it a
ones at the
family.
end of the day that you're with every day.
Yeah. Okay.
And then in between projects, right? I mean, hell, I worked with, Rich and Andy and Bishop on Mercenaries and then on H1Z1 and then on Mercenaries again and then on Planetside 2. Like, that's four different projects.
Mhm.
I was Planetside 2 still out there, but that basically came and went, but it's the same people. And now
Yeah.
I'm going to a totally different studio with a bunch of people that I've worked with in the past. Different
Yeah.
project, different studio, same people.
And
It's just,
it's a whole through line of continuity
yep.
that is totally invisible to me and the guy in the mech suit on Amarish and the guy flying the Reaver on Indar. Like,
Yeah.
that is fascinating to me because, I put a lot of I didn't tune into Arena, while it was around because I was
Yeah.
one of the guys who was like, "A battle royale on my planet side? Are you kidding me?" I
Yeah.
was cynical about it, and also I was
Yeah.
just not that tuned into the IP at that time. But anyway, um, so when I was trying to prepare to sit down and talk to you, I was like, "How do I get into the soul of this game? How do I understand what it was about? Why did people play it? What did they see in it? Like, what was the progression?" And for me, like, I look at things like, okay, this competitor released at this time. There's this kind of context. I learned for you that you were involved in the combat update H1Z1. I was like, oh, okay, there's an interesting through line from there to Planetside. And um, I guess you look at someone's career on paper and you see like it looks like they're being drawn. We can kind of create like a motivation in our head, say this person is chasing this. And it takes them through all these things. But that doesn't that's all based on some kind of, um it's like someone's grinding a battle pass, right? And you know what the end of the battle pass looks like, but that's not the way a life works.
Yeah. Uh-uh.
It's you
Yeah.
make it up as you go, and you're drawn through it by the people, and I feel like this is just personally to me because even though I wasn't involved didn't care about Arena when it was here very much,
Mhm.
um, it's a blow to my Planetside family to have a game like Arena that
Yeah.
that came and went. Like, it
Yeah.
hurts to have had that happened. I heard, I talked to Commander Sirius a few weeks ago. He's a YouTuber, for
Mhm.
Planetside,
Yeah.
been around for a long time.
Yeah.
And, he had the hot take that Planetside Arena might have killed the possibility of Planetside 3 ever existing. And I mean, that's his take. I don't necessarily agree with
Nah, of
it.
course, of course.
It's a kind of thing you can easily extrapolate. But
Yeah.
when I hear you talk about this, I don't care about any of that because there are so many games, man.
Oh yeah.
It's like I told you, if I could play everything that interested me, I would do nothing else. And I need to create some more hours in the day besides.
Yeah. There's a lot out there.
And but the people, like with you, are also what moved me through my life, who I'm connected with. And it creates a story of understanding what happened here that to me is much easier to take away than there was a cynical idea that one was trying to pull over on me and it didn't work. And now
Yeah.
because of it, I'm fucked. Like I mean that's a little hyperbolic, but like
Yeah.
that's the in the corner of my mind that's the voice I hear.
Yeah.
But no, man, it's just people
Yeah.
doing their best to make the coolest thing they can under difficult circumstances and
Yeah.
trying to help each other out.
Yep. Yeah. We're given a box to color in. You gotta stay inside the lines and try to make the best picture you can. And sometimes the box is really big because you got 100 million. Or sometimes the box is really small because you got 10 million.
Yeah.
Sometimes the box is tiny because you're, an indie developer by yourself trying to make something. And all you have is, you. And so, it's all a huge factor. But at the end of the day, like you're just trying to make something awesome.
Yeah. I had a conversation with a Guild Wars 2 streamer a little while ago,
Hmm.
and we talked about the gulf that kind of can exist between people who make the games, people who play them,
Hmm.
and the desire, the appetite for the really invested gamers to understand, like, why is this being done? Like the same kind of thing
Right.
you would hear with people who float into your stream, be like, "What happened with H1Z1? Like, I loved
Right.
this thing and it went away. What happened? Can you help me
Yeah.
understand this? Get past it."
Yeah.
And we talked about like, what can game studios do better or different, or what have we seen work to to clue people in. And I don't know, like I feel like we kind of came away with this kind of brutal truth that I'm still trying to decide about, which is like a game that does a game that fulfills its purpose speaks for itself. You don't
Yeah.
need someone to tell the story because it tells its own story. It's only when
Right.
things don't work that we need that story. And within the family of game development, I
Hmm.
know that when you go work on New World, you're going to not repeat any mistakes you feel like you made while working on Defiance, while working
Yeah.
on any Planetside or H1Z1. Um, and I don't know. I guess my mind's being a little blown at the moment. That's all.
No, 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 you're good. You try not to do this, but I'll make different mistakes,
Of
and
course,
then I'll learn from them, and
as
then
you
you just go
should.
forward and you know not to make those. There's just a whole lot of mistakes out there to be made, and it's
Right.
just tough because everything is different. Every landscape is different. Every game is different. Every team is different. The engine's different. Community's different. One thing that works one place may not work somewhere else. So you're like, I'm gonna do this way because it worked that way in the past. Oh hell, that didn't work at all. And there's a lot of
Or
it.
sometimes it works and you don't know why, and it doesn't work somewhere else, and why didn't this work? Like,
Yep.
yeah,
Yeah.
okay,
Exactly.
making games
Oh.
sounds hard, man.
It it is. It's super. It's so much harder than I ever thought it would have been, but it's also so much more rewarding than I thought it ever would have been. And it is why I do what I do, and I'm super excited for this Amazon opportunity. I am
Yeah.
super blessed for the time that I had this last run at PlayStation. Team, they're super talented.
Anything
Those,
you want to say about that
they
time, about what you were doing or what the experience
yeah, I
was?
was I was actually making baseball, which was a complete departure for me. That is totally,
Oh,
yeah, it's just totally different. But they needed a systems designer with a RPG background.
Uh-huh.
Because it was for itemization and progression, and I was like, I can do that. Might be on
Hmm.
baseball, but like numbers are numbers, math is math.
Uh-huh.
And so I was working on that, and so I worked on that for a couple years, and I really really enjoyed my time there. But this I'm hopeful this next chapter. I've seen some of the things they've got in the roadmap. I understand what their long term vision is for the game, and I am genuinely excited about what they've got going on for New World. So I'm stoked.
That gets me
Yeah,
excited.
yeah.
Just
I'm
selfish. Go ahead.
no, I'm just saying. I'm stoked. It's been yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It's gonna be
Yeah.
good.
Yeah. Okay. Because yeah, I guess pivoting a bit back to gamer brain. Uh I
Yeah,
played the shit out of some New World last year,
yeah,
and watched it get a million players,
yeah.
and then I got to the end, and I'm like, okay, I feel like I've seen what I needed to see here, and I
Yeah.
don't know what's going on, and I'm anxious to see to see New World communicate with me again in a way that is like, okay, here's why you should
Time to
come
go back.
back.
Yeah,
Here's why you should come back. So I'm excited to hear what that's going to look like because it's a cool world. It needs people in it.
yep, yeah, yeah. I
As
think that's the big thing with New World that always pulled. There's something special about its foundation. There's just
right.
like you run around the world. There's just something about it. You're like, damn, this is really cool. And of course, the launched had good numbers, and I think a lot of people got to 40 to 60, and they just kind of like either didn't want to keep doing what they were doing, or
Yeah.
they got through the content and they were like, all right, well, I saw it and I'm out now. And
Right.
they're waiting for that update to bring them back. But I think that's the beauty of it, is that you pay for it and you just come back whenever you want to come back. You
Hmm.
don't have to worry about firing up a sub. You don't have to worry about anything. You just reinstall it and go check it out again.
Hmm.
And so when those updates do hit, I think it's uh, I'm excited.
Cool, man. Well, I will watch that with a lot more, much more of a smile on my face, knowing that you're in the mix.
Yeah, it's gonna be. I'm excited. It's gonna be fun. I'm working with. Actually, it's funny. One of the guy, again, small family. I started Tryon. He started Tryon as well
Uh huh.
within a week, and both of us. It was our first time in the industry.
Uh huh.
We both got laid off together. Haven't worked with him since. He's been on New World. Now I'm going to work, and so we'll be coworkers again for the first time in like
That's cool.
8 years. And like that's just rad. It's just it. I'm jazzed.
That is really cool, man. Well, between like the family of game dev and streaming and all that, it sounds like you're a guy who really feels you have a strong sense of community about you.
Yeah. I mean, doesn't matter what you make if there's no community. There's no job. You have no game. I can make the
Yeah.
coolest thing. If no one plays it, it doesn't matter. I can make something terrible. If everybody plays it, then it matters. Like, you know what I mean? Like, there's no.
Yeah.
And so
Tree falling in the
it's
forest and all
huge.
that.
It's huge. Whether it's the community playing the game or the family making the game, either way, you're not doing it on your own.
Yeah.
You know, and an indie dev can do it on their own. That's someone small doing a small project or whatever. They can definitely make it, but once it goes out, they still need the community to play it. And so either way, you got community.
Yeah. Yeah. It's almost like it's unavoidable.
Yeah.
I think
Yep.
that for me personally, I have been trying to find a community around playing video games that sustain me.
Yeah.
I still feel like it's something that I'm looking for, and to the point where even I've just sort of given up. I've stopped looking and said, okay, I guess I got to try to make it if I can.
Yeah.
Started doing this podcast, dabbling a bit with streaming. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
I feel that too, man. I need to feel. I want to feel surrounded. I want to be at the nerd camp, dude.
Yeah.
You know, I I want I want to be surrounded by people who have similar interests and get excited when I do something nerdy that
Yep.
maybe my wife, who I love passionately, but doesn't give a shit about this stuff. Uh, it won't care about, or my family who are doing their own things, and it's just your found family, right?
Yeah. It's a especially for I think those of us that have got a few years on the rest of y'all. But growing up, I was the nerd and I was the outcast. Video games weren't cool, and that was it. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
brother, I
And it's
remember.
changed now. Like now, video games are the cool thing, right? Oh, the
Mm.
cool kids play video games or whatever, right? But like, so there's a level of I think validation where you're just like, stuff I'm into is relevant. So everybody that called me a nerd growing up, y'all can suck it.
Yes, the revenge of the
You know?
nerds.
It is,
I
dude.
feel that.
Like when
I feel that passionately, man. Because
it's so like I
yeah, go
remember when
ahead.
I got my first gig at PlayStation the first time. People I hadn't talked to since high school hit me, "Hey, dude, can I get a PlayStation?"
Oh,
You know what? If I could get that, man, I would send you one because I'm too lazy to hold a grudge. But god damn, really? It's been
are
this
you
long, and
serious?
now you're after something? Get out of here. But yeah. So
Yeah. Well, I don't know how old you are. I don't want to call you out or anything. I grew up. I
nah,
went
it's
to.
all right.
I remember growing up in the '90s, and
Mm-hmm.
very fortunate enough to have a computer in the house. Right, my dad was an
Yeah.
accountant, so he was ahead of the curve technologically, and and video games were around, and I remember around the turn of the century, 2001 or so, upgrading from dial up. Where I've been trying to play Quake 3 and Half Life on dial up, and so
Yeah.
so so many games that were multiplayer functional back then weren't really functional in dial up. Not
Nah.
really. Also, you had to
No.
have a dedicated phone line or end your game whenever
Uh,
someone called in. Man,
yeah. Mom would pick up the phone, and that was it. And you're like
mom,
disconnected. Mom, what are you doing? Yeah.
my friend's calling.
Yeah.
And And there was no, like, there were Discords, there was Twitch, all the ways that we build communities around
You had
this
freaking
passion
Mumble,
and
dude.
this interest is just
Yeah.
it's wildly different, man. It's
Yeah.
really cool, actually. It's really cool. There's a
Yeah.
part of me that thinks, like, if I could have streamed and done podcasting in my 20s, that I
Mm-hmm.
could have gotten a much earlier start on the things I'm passionate about compared to how it actually worked out.
Yeah, I mean, it's it's hindsight's 2020. It's one of those in 2008, 2009. I
Mhm.
grew up on consoles,
Mm.
and so I had bought my first PC for college, and that's when I really got into PCs. And then like I really got into PCs, upgrading, overclocking, benchmarking,
As I can
competing, all
see.
that kind of fun stuff. And it's like, damn it, if I would have put this on YouTube, I could have been Linus.
Yeah,
Because I was there, and that was the time, and I had all the gear, and I had all the stuff, and I just never put two and two together.
right.
And now I look at it and I see a lot of these guys, they started their YouTube channels or whatever, and they're like, oh yeah, well my first CPU was like E 7700, and I was like, dude, I was two generations before that, and I was
Mhm.
like, I'm an idiot, but I had no idea. I had no idea.
Mhm.
It
Mhm.
was one of those things. That's fine. I'm making video games, so I'm still a W, but like,
Yeah, well,
eh,
back then, for all we knew, our parents were right, and it was a waste of time, right?
waste of time. What are you gonna do?
Get a real
Play
job.
video games forever? Actually, I am.
I think that is a fantastic note to end this on.
It was awesome.
Anything else you want to
Yeah,
talk about, brother?
no, I think the only other thing is to anybody listening to this, next time you're really upset because the game devs seem to do something really stupid, just ask yourself twice before yelling at them, and then don't yell at them. Just ask them a question. That's all
Mm,
I ask. Because 9 times out of 10, if it is something that seems really dumb, there's probably an outside factor. And the dev also agrees that to an extent it's really dumb, but they had to do what they had to do.
mhm,
And then you just never know the full picture of what's going on. We're just people. We're just trying to make games, try to navigate life, and you never know all the external factors that are going on out there. So that's it.
There it is.
We're just people making games, playing games.
Yeah.
Yeah. But what about, did you have anything else that you wanted to prod me on before we dipped?
Nah, man, I'm astonished that you tolerated me bugging you about Planetside Arena for so long. Like,
Nah, it just goes back to people just want answers to questions. Like that's it. And minds are
yeah,
curious, and
yeah, we
there's a
need
reason.
there's like a sense of closure, right? Like,
Yeah,
what?
yeah,
I mean, closure may be fake news, but like, what? What should I have learned from this thing? I don't know what I
yeah.
should have learned from this thing. Let's ask people.
And
Show
it's
curiosity.
yeah, yep. It, it's funny because there would be times where like when I just wrapped at PlayStation, so I was going through portfolio and I was
Yeah.
going through all my personal drives to make sure like my resume and everything is in order, this and that, and I come across a bunch of screenshots and videos from Planetside Arena, and all I do is get angry. I just get mad and
Mm.
I get pissed off because like it didn't go how we wanted it to. I know what the team put into it, and I know what coulda, shoulda, woulda, and just what wasn't. And it sucks because then like you come across someone, they're like, "Oh, I can't believe you did PSA. It should have been PS3. Like, what's wrong with you?" And you're like, "I got a story to tell you." So maybe hopefully after this, they can just listen to this and be like, "Oh, that's what happened."
We'll see, man. I hope so.
Yeah,
I hope
but
so. And I
indeed.
hope that you have a blast working on New World.
I can't wait. I am so. It's one of those things like when you're a designer and you're working on something that you want to work on, you never stop thinking about it. It's like earlier today, I was thinking about crafting and gathering and thinking about some of the nothing's perfect. Obviously, that's why we
Yeah.
keep doing what we're doing. But I was like in Home Depot and I was getting copies of keys made for the new house.
Yeah.
And then I start thinking about like, and it's just it's always running in the background. It's like a background process on your
Yep.
PC. It's just always there. And I was like, oh, dude, we could totally do this, and this would solve A, B, and C. And I'm like in the middle of a conversation with this dude about keys for a lock, and like this thing comes to me, and like I start spacing out like mid convo, and then I like re-engage in the
I gotta
conversation.
write
But
this
like,
down.
yeah, when you're passionate and you care, like that's just how it works. Like there's no timeline. We were having conversations with the CEO when I was on H1.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, "Well, how long do you think it'll take you to solve this?" I was like, "I don't know."
Mm.
I was like, "I solved the problem with a level I was making on Defiance like 4 years after I left the company because it was still sitting back there,
It just
and
came
I
to you
didn't
one
realize I
day in
was
the
still thinking
shower.
about it." Yep, exactly. And it was just churning. I was like, "Oh, I could have done that." No relevance to anything else I was working on,
Uh-huh.
and like couldn't do anything about it. Like the game had already like been shut down or whatever. But that's just what happened. It just sits there, and so I'm
But
excited with
you
New
had
World
that
because I can tell it's
unresolved
going to be
kind
one of
of
those.
like a wrinkle in a piece of clothing in the back of your mind, and
Yep.
you finally straightened that out, and then
Yep.
that place where Defiance lives within you gets to be a little bit more well ordered. You can look back at it and see like, oh yeah, this is what I learned from this.
Yep. Exactly. A little bit more
Yeah,
neat and more tidy. So, but yeah, good times.
beautiful, beautiful. Well, thank you for taking the time, Carto, and
Absolutely. Anytime. Anytime at all. Next time that you talk to Wrel, give him a virtual hug for me.
I will. I
And
always do. I always do.
and awesome. And be nice to Wrel. All right. Be nice to him. That's it.
All right,
That's all I
heard it here. Thanks, man.
Deeg, thank you so much, brother. You have a good weekend, and chat again soon. Let me know if you need anything else. I'll be around.
All right, dude. Cool.
All right, brother.
Well, thanks. Yeah, I guess we do cold exit. This is the Deeg podcast. Thanks for tuning in. Catch you next time. Later.
Hey, awesome.
Cool.
Keep moving. We're gonna make it. Still there. Wait for it.